Read the next line for me, please.
Okay, I see M, D, C.
Okay, that's enough. I think I see what the problem is. Your eyes are in terrible shape. Probably from watching too much Tales from the Crypt. To fix it will require coactive lenses, maybe even radial skeratotomy. Although there is another test I could perform. We'll start by turning out the lights and making you look at this. It's a nasty nugget about a writer who's pretty fear-sighted himself. I call this one Confession.
Sorry. We've cordoned off the whole block, sir. Will do, sir.
Sir?
Oh, yes, a nice place. Where's the inspector?
Inspector Herbert.
Hello, Minty. Where is she?
In there.
Same as before.
Same as before.
Find the head.
No.
Third what, Minty?
Tell me something I don't know.
I wish I could. 3 women, 3 missing heads.
And no leads. What's so funny?
I can see the tabloids now. Headless girl in topless club.
That's rich. Ever think about a career in journalism?
No. Too cutthroat for me.
Sir, they've caught him.
Where?
Windmill Street.
How do they know it's him?
Billings found him. He's washing his hands in the alley. The boys think it's blood.
Caught red-handed.
Terry, get your boys over to alley now.
Yes, sir.
What do you want for the interrogation?
On our man, Jack. I want a conviction.
Scrimpy, get me Jack Lynch.
But sir, Jack doesn't like to be bothered on his bowling night.
Bombing. I don't care if it's his wedding night. You find me Jack Lynch and you find him now.
Yes, sir.
So whose bright idea was this? No, let me guess. Minty.
Herbert and Minty both. I'm sorry, Jack. It's the missing head case.
Big case on the line calling Jack. Jack's a man. Jack will make us look good. Wankers. Tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yes, sir.
Since when is it a crime to wash your hands in this town? Answer me! I know you're in there. You have any idea who I am? Do you?
He's the one.
He's our psycho.
Most serial killers have a truncated sense of identity. Their frustration stems from the feeling that no matter how fierce their ambitions, they can never attain the place in society they desire. Subconsciously, they long for the international celebrity that comes with their capture.
Where'd you hear that?
Jack told me.
He's good.
Tell me something I don't know.
I wish I could.
Jack's arrived, sir. I gave him the file.
What did he say?
He told you to go and... He said that he'd be here in a minute, sir.
Always carrying that bowling ball around like some kind of bloody trophy.
Serial killers collect trophies, you know? Might take a bit of clothing, necklace, something to remind them of their victim. Some of them even have the nerve to wear it in public, to flaunt their crime in the face of justice.
More fun facts from the station's foremost expert on serial killings.
And 10-pin champion. Rolled another 600 series tonight. 685 to be exact.
So, do you think I have any idea what you're talking about?
Just know it's good. Very good.
Must be hard to live with perfection.
Somebody's got to do it.
You're going to be sucking a shit shake out of a crazy straw.
I look forward to it.
Sure you do. Oh, great. If being hauled in here isn't bad enough, I'm now face to face with the Dirty Harry of bowling.
Says in your statement you're a writer.
Yeah, what of it?
What kind of writing?
Screenplays.
For films?
Correct. You win a cookie. Can I go now?
We pulled your credits off the Internet Movie Database. It says here you wrote something for a television program called Tales from the Crypt. What's that?
It's ancient history. It's years ago. I was a kid. They rewrote everything I did. It's been cancelled now. Serves them bloody right.
You're very successful since then, though, haven't you? Devil's Banjo. The Incubus Club. Dr. Brimstone.
Oh, huge on video.
And you've even got a film in the cinemas now.
Passover.
That's right, Passover. It's been #1 for the past 2 weeks.
4.5 weeks. 112 million gross in the US alone.
112 million, really? What's the secret?
Research. No one does enough research anymore. Research a film well, anyone can write a good script.
Even me?
Even you, Inspector.
So tell me about Passover.
It's fucking great. There's a serial killer. He is... Wait a minute. Why do you want to know?
About a serial killer who preys on the firstborn male infant of each family he comes across. Isn't that right?
You're not telling me that someone's been killing firstborn kids or something? You're trying to pin this on me?
Where do you get your ideas from, Mr. Evans?
I write this stuff. I don't live it.
Do you blame women for your troubles?
I don't... What troubles? I don't have
Do you have
troubles.
bondage, fantasy? Do you like torturing
I want to talk to my
animals?
lawyer.
No, you waived that right. Now,
I have changed my mind, you asshole.
Okay, good. Call your lawyer. Call 1,000 lawyers. Nobody's going to help you. You're one sad, twisted son of a bitch, and I'm going to prove it.
What are you trying to do to me? I am innocent, you bastard!
You can't fool Jack. He's never wrong.
He's a master of psychological profiling. If it's in their head, he'll find it.
Tell me something I don't.
I wish I could. White woman, white killer. Statistics show most mass murderers kill within their own ethnic group.
Jack, tell you that?
Yeah, she did.
What about Jeffrey Dahmer?
Jack said Dahmer was different. He killed outside his ethnic group, but he only ate the people he liked.
So, is he guilty, Jack?
Well, he's guilty, all right. I'm absolutely convinced about it. But the bastard's good, Scrimp. He's very good. He's not giving anything away.
How can you be so sure that he's the one?
I don't know. It's in his eyes, in his gestures, the way he speaks. Individually, the signs may seem insignificant, but put them all together, and you've got your man.
How come you didn't get promoted, Jack? How come the other two got promoted and you didn't? You're so much smarter than those two. Everybody knows that.
Somebody's got to make him look good.
True. I can't hold you down forever, though. You're too good. You're going to get that promotion next time.
Scrimp, can I ask you something?
Sure, Jack?
Do you often handle other men's balls without asking?
Sorry, Jack.
Here's a list I want you to check. I'm in a hurry, so be quick.
Oh, they're ready for you in the interrogation room. Evans is asking for you.
What about his lawyer?
Seems he's changed his mind again.
Why?
Because that's what you want me to do. You took the line of questioning down that route. You wanted me to ask for a lawyer because that's what a guilty person does. And I'm not guilty, so I'm not going to ask for a lawyer.
Anyway, I don't need some sharp kid in an Armani suit telling me where the line of questioning is going to go. I know where the line of questioning is going to go.
I've written scenes like this, remember? I can help you catch the killer.
You are good. You're very good.
I know.
Did you have that same look on your face when you murdered these women?
You know what, Inspector? I've worked out what I don't like about you. You remind me of these no-talent film school brats, born and raised with a silver spoon up their arse. And later on, some of them become big, bad Hollywood studio executives and act like arrogant little pricks. But that's just to cover up the fact that they haven't got a clue. They're scared shitless, just like you.
You seem to be struggling with some class issues. Do you want to talk about it?
I don't know, does it fit in with your psychological profile of a serial killer?
Maybe.
Well, then you're going to be talking to about a couple of million other people today as well.
No, I think I've narrowed it down a little bit more than that.
Go on then, take your best shot.
What were you doing in the alley?
I was washing my hands.
I've been to an occult shop, and Mr. Fingers something or other. I don't remember the name.
I don't have to remember the name.
You always wash your hands immediately after browsing in the shop.
Yes, when someone has
Spilled virgin sheep's blood all over my hands. Of course, it may have just been red dye. I don't know about that. Did you also purchase
This in the occult shop.
Sure, research, remember? Don't tell me. The serial killer's a Satanist as well.
You tell me.
Look, I bought this book because I'm working on a film about a Satanist who is reincarnated as a serial killer who only kills other serial killers.
Clever.
Warner's thought so. They paid me 6 figures for a 2-page outline.
Found this in your pocket. You want to tell me about it?
They hand them out in the streets. I thought I might pop by sometime.
Did you pop by tonight?
I need to hide a corpse. Sorry, it's a joke. It's a joke. Look, obviously, from the way you asked the question, the murders happen in this club, right?
You impotent.
Very clever, Inspector. Throw me a curve, see how I react. The truth is in the eyes, right? Individually, the facts may not add up to much, but put them all together and you've got your man. I've also read Warden's paper on genetic markers and the psychology of the sociopathic mind. Research, remember?
We were sexually abused.
Give me a break. Why don't you just ask me about my murder kit while you're at it?
Your what?
Knives, bandages, rope, condoms. Like a toolkit for murderers. Bianchi had one. Harvey Glattman. Have you read your encyclopedia of serial killers?
Yes, I have. Have you ever been in therapy?
Murder is faster than therapy.
Why do you say that?
Paraphrasing Edmund Kemper. Come on, Inspector. You're supposed to be an expert on serial killers. You should have known that point. Look. Let's have a look at the evidence. Now, this is murder by numbers. No sign of a break-in here. Lock still bolted here. Dinner on the table. This woman was killed by someone she knew. These women, they knew their assailant. You're looking for someone they trust, a friend, a priest, a policeman maybe. And this, could it be any more plain? The killer is obviously somebody with a hard-on for authority figures. He's tormenting his pursuers, defying them to work out who he is. Check your records. Look for someone who's been sacked recently, passed over for promotion. Ring any bell? And this. Obviously, the killer is physically very strong. The right arm particularly. Look at the bruising here on the right shoulder. A sportsman, perhaps. Someone, Inspector, someone who likes to perhaps roll large round balls down a wooden pathway towards 10 oddly shaped pins. You see? Anybody can do this. This is fun. Now, I know the law. You can only hold me for 24 hours. You're going to charge me or release me. I've shown you what I know. I seem to know just about as much as you, and that's not saying much.
And what if I told you that the woman we found murdered tonight was a soldier's wife? Do you know what that would mean?
I have absolutely no idea, but I'm damn sure you're going to tell me.
It would mean that according to the Professional Terrorists Act, I could hold you for a lot longer than 24 hours.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I could hold you indefinitely. Certainly long enough to search your flat.
This soldier's wife stuff is a load of bullshit. You have no right.
As a suspected terrorist, Mr. Evans, you have no rights.
This is like a scene out of some bad film. He's a fucking psycho, not me.
You're right. This is fun.
I want to make a phone call.
Keep it short.
You're too kind. Hello. Hi, baby. Hi, it's me. Listen to me. I've been arrested, right? No, it's okay. It's all bullshit. I've been arrested. I want you to phone Stuart, tell him to get some people on this, right? Because I may want to sue these bastards. Okay? Now, I want you to pack a bag. Now, just listen to me. Pack a bag, and I want you to get out of town. Go see your mum, okay? And you know, in the back of the cupboard, you know my black bag? You know that square one? Take that with you, right? And dump it. Yeah, just dump it.
I don't think that's such a good idea.
Let's begin again, shall we? These are your video rental records for the past 5 years. 2,403 tapes rented, 2,012 of them are pornographic. 811 of those involving bondage, human sacrifice, and necrophilia. Your online computer account, 204 of which have material deemed as obscene or of an adult nature. 403 involving scenes of bestiality in some shape or form.
Research.
How to make a pipe bomb. How to make a silencer. How to make a landmine.
All of it research.
Warhol Evans, formerly known as Kenneth Keith Landau, arrested by the authorities for molestation of a minor, insufficient evidence.
Time ago. I've worked hard. I paid my debt to society.
Well, tell that to the children you abused. They was acquitted. And the women you murdered.
I'm innocent.
Nobody's innocent. Indeed, get me the tabloids. I've got a story they're gonna love. Innocent Hollywood writer decapitate 3 women to get ahead. No, I'll kill you. Like you killed those women. Those women who wouldn't accept you as an equal. But the dead are all equal, aren't they? The dead have no class. Isn't that right, Mr. Evans? Isn't that what you believe? Fuck you.
That's why I told her to lose the bag. I knew you'd never understand. I bought it at a fairground. Some sort of freak show. I thought he looked funny.
Where did you hide the other heads?
Without the kid's confession, we had nothing.
No blood, no weapon, nothing. Just red dye.
But Jack knew better.
Sure he did. He's a real deal, a pro.
Oh, damn right. He got inside Evans' head. Read him like a bad script.
Jack gets what Jack wants. He's a natural.
A policeman's policeman.
He's the best.
Tell me something I don't know.
Too bad about Warhol. If he had kept his mouth shut, he wouldn't have gotten ahead of himself. Still, I think prison might work as a career move. I hear great things about their chop placement. Well, kiddies, your condition isn't as bad as I thought. A prescription for difocals should do the trick. Otherwise, your eyes are perfectly fine. Want me to put them back in your head for you? Look, lady, I'm sorry if the product made your skin fall off, but we never do exchanges on sale merchandise. Next, some people. Maybe at Doomingdale's, the ghostomers always fright, but not here. Attention all Slaymart choppers. Interested in tonight's Boo Light special? It concerns a couple of crooks who are about to learn the benefits of dying wholesale. I call this bit of gash and carry ear today, gone tomorrow.
One minute. One minute 30. $2.10. We've got an alarm.
Just a minute. Almost there.
What's the problem?
Oh, it's no problem. I've almost got it.
$2.35.
Open it. Yeah, just one more minute, okay?
We haven't got another minute. The coppers are on their way.
Open it.
You idiot. He's hopeless.
No, wait. Let me start again, okay? I got confused.
Time's up, Fennel. The police are here. And you're dead. Boom. Right in the kisser. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Lawson, but it looks like this bloke's been wasting your time. He ain't a safe cracker.
Yeah, I believe you're right, Henry. We've been duped. It's a shame. A real shame.
A bleeding shame, sir. And a busy man like yourself, you shouldn't have to bother with the likes of this riffraff.
It can certainly leave a nasty taste in one's mouth. But I'm not going to give up yet. I'm a problem solver. My bookies are very worried about you, Glyn. So much so that they've brought your rather large debt to my attention this time. Now, I ask you, do I look like the type of man who's built an empire on flogging drunks and gamblers? No, sir. That's right. I'm not. I'm a batterer. The way I see it, every man has a skill that I can trade for. In your case, I was told you have a certain expertise that could be very useful to me. One that could help you pay off your debt.
No, Mr. Lawson. It's just that I've run up against a bit of a losing streak. Again. But I've got a tip on a horse.
Tips are for waiters and cabbies. Betting man should never accept one. You know that.
Yeah, I know that, but this one's a beaut, you know, sir. It's a sure thing.
You had a sure thing, you stupid ass. And you fucked it up! All you had to do was to crack that safe. And we were in business.
Malcolm. Still crying over spilt milk. I thought we had moved beyond this obsession of yours.
Glyn Fennel. My wife, Kate. If she speaks of obsession with some authority, it's because she's an expert. Her beauty is not so much a tribute to the hand of God as to the meticulous craftsmanship of some of this country's finest plastic surgeons.
Malcolm, you gave away my secret. I'm hurt.
Impossible. I thought we'd paid to have your feelings removed, along with certain rather unsightly wrinkles, of course.
Very funny. Don't let him fool you, Mr. Fennel.
I'll pay you back, Mr. Lawson. Every penny. All I need is one more chance.
And all I needed was a competent safecracker. So, it appears that neither of our needs are going to be fulfilled. Pity. Great pity. I had high hopes of you, Glyn. I was told you used to be good. One of the best. Oh. Get the car ready, and then cut his throat. I can't be bothered with this anymore.
Right, sir.
Love the glasses, Henry.
Thank you, ma'am. As I said to Mr. Lawson, I appreciate the gift.
My pleasure.
No. Don't go, please. Please, give me one more chance.
Oh, I'll do anything. Really, I will.
No, I will. I'll do anything. Please help me.
Really? Anything? Then tell me a story. What happened to the world's greatest safecracker?
Well, I took a beating in prison, and I kind of lost my hearing, you know. But it's healed now. But I can't hear the tumblers no more. I can't hear anything. You know? But that's no reason to kill a man, is it?
It's as good as any. But then again, why don't you let him go, Malcolm? Give him one more chance.
Why?
He's cute. In a pathetic sort of way.
It's business.
Oh, and you never mix business with pleasure, am I right?
That is my rule.
Then how do you explain me?
You, my love, are my hobby. A very expensive one.
But well worth it. That man's obsession with gambling intrigues me. I bet.
What the devil? All right, I'll take that bet.
Car's ready, sir.
Thanks, Henry.
No, come on, I can get the money. No!
Cut him free.
Sir?
I said cut him free. my wife has bought Mr. Fennel a short reprieve.
Very good, sir.
Thank you so very much. Oh, I forget this.
Now, don't be so quick to kneel at her feet. In my view, she's only extended your suffering. But as she wishes to prove a point, I've decided to grant her request to spare your life. Tomorrow, Mr. Fennel, I leave for Paris. If, when I return in 10 days' time, I find that your debt is still outstanding, I shall kill you without any further hesitation. Not even my lovely wife will be able to save your skin a second time. You understand each other, eh?
Yes. Yes, sir. I won't let you down.
I know you won't. I'm betting on it.
There you go. No, thanks for the beer. Yes, dear.
Hello, Glenn.
Bloody hell.
Meow. Amazing, aren't they? They're part of a little surprise I'm planning.
Are they real?
Of course. I came all the way down here to show them to you.
You came all the way down here to show me your eyes? Why?
I want you to help me break into my husband's safe. Do it, and I promise you, you'll never have to worry about money again.
You are crazy, lady.
Am I? In 5 days, he's going to kill you. I say you'd be crazy not to accept. Let me help you, and then we can help each other.
I've told you before, I can't hear anything, can I? I mean, I can't even hear the tumblers fall.
Ah, yes, but I know a man, a surgeon who can cure your hearing loss. He's using new and radical techniques. Doing things no one's even dreamed of. Help me, and you'll be rich. Decide not to, and you're as good as dead. Either way, it's a sure thing.
Where's Henry?
He's gone. He always travels with Malcolm when he has monkey business to tend to. We're alone. Trust me. Come on.
Excuse, where are we going?
To the bedroom. To call the doctor. Don't be so suspicious. This is business. I won't bite.
I clearly don't understand you, Mr. Fennel. You will bet every pound you own on a long shot in hopes of hitting it big. But you will not take a slight gamble in following me to my room. Why is that?
Oh, no, I guess I'm interested in only one thing, lady. The big score.
Why, me too, Mr. Fennel. Coming?
Yeah?
Now, let's just hope, for your sake, we're talking about the same thing. All taken care of. My surgeon is expecting you.
Oh. That's good, right. Well, I'll probably be on my way then.
Is that what you think?
Well, like you said, you know, I mean, the doctor is...
I am going to fuck you.
That's not funny.
Does this look like I'm laughing?
Oh, boy. Oh, please, please. Please don't do this.
Oh, ever since I got these new eyes, I've been having these strange urges. I mean, it's not like I even find you that attractive, but you do. I think my body's trying to tell me something.
Yeah.
That I crave sex. I feel like I'm on a hot tin roof.
Have you tried catnip?
What kind of crack is that?
It's just a little joke, that's all. Just a little joke. I mean, never mix business with pleasure, remember?
And who said it's gonna be pleasurable?
You do a lot of these operations then, Doc?
Not as many as I'd like to, I'm afraid. The procedure is fairly new, therefore the operation is extremely expensive. But, fortunately for you, you have a wealthy benefactor.
Oh, you say that again. She's got a nice little benefactor.
Tricking an individual's immune system into accepting tissue from another person is not an easy task. Introducing tissue from an entirely different species is another story altogether. We're still working out the bugs.
Bugs? God, that's not very encouraging.
Oh, there's nothing to worry about. We've been pumping pig insulin into diabetics for generations. It was really only a matter of time before we made full use of all their transplantable organs. We've even used bone marrow from baboons to fight off retroviruses.
Baboons? Get out, don't be ridiculous.
Hey, I'm sorry. I don't understand. Mrs. Lawson said you wanted to improve your hearing.
Yeah, well, I do, I know, I do. But I mean, I don't want to wake up and find a couple of chimps here stuck in my head, do I?
You won't. Primates' auditory abilities are not that much better than humans. I want to improve your hearing tenfold, Mr. Fennel.
What, you can do that?
Oh, absolutely.
How?
By giving you the auditory system of an owl.
Can you hear me, Glyn? Wake up, Glyn.
What happened?
The operation was a success. Yes. I took advantage of your fainting spell and put the time to good use. You're cured. The headset will help until you learn to better filter the sound waves. Now tell me, how do you feel?
Great. I feel absolutely great.
Glad to hear that.
You should stop smoking. Your heart's racing.
When I want your opinion, I'll ask for it. Meanwhile, keep your ears out of my chest.
We could negotiate a compromise. Upstairs.
There's been quite a change in your personality ever since your operation. Maybe you're not such a miserable specimen after all. With your confidence restored, you're almost a man. It's too bad my husband comes home tomorrow. If you had any money, you might actually be interesting.
Really? Well, in that case, let's crack a safe.
No, not there.
Why, what do you mean?
That's pocket change. This is for keeps. Impress me.
My pleasure.
Well done, Glenn. You are about to become a very wealthy bachelor.
Well, Madam, you know what they say? Age before beauty.
I beg your pardon?
Funny what you find lying around here, given half a chance, isn't it?
I told you I was gonna take care of you. There's gonna be more than you could ever need. Just put that away.
Nah. No, that's not good enough. You don't get me, do you? I'm a gambler. And a gambler settles for nothing less than everything. I want everything. The big score, remember?
Oh, Glenn, don't be this way. Think of the night we had together. I lied. It was great. You know, that's all I think about.
I warned you, Pussycat. Smoking kills.
Damn. Malcolm was right about you. He'll always be a bad bet.
Oh, dear, that is disgusting. You know, one thing I hate worse than smoking is furballs. People have got some filthy habits.
Damn, I hate it when that happens. God, life is a bitch sometimes.
I'll say. All bloody 9 of them. Or in my case, 8. Some side effects are better than others, Glenn. Wouldn't you agree?
To who? To who? I think you mean to whom, Glenn? To whom?
Still can't believe you're taking my money, Malcolm.
No, I still can't believe you thought he had any principles. Good grief. The man's positively Neanderthal. The moment he got a sniff of some easy money, his instincts took over. I knew he'd try to shoot you. First chance he got.
Oh, but it's my allowance.
Well, I have to say, I thought it was a sucker bet from
What
the
have you
outset.
done to me?
Done to you? My goodness, it's what you've done for me that's exciting.
Yeah, but what have I done to deserve this? Eh?
You've been the perfect host. I knew you were a sure thing the moment I laid eyes on you.
I explained the whole thing to you in my office, dear boy. These experiments are tricky stuff. Sometimes we have to move slowly up the evolutionary scale to make them stick. For something as intricate as a human ear, you can't just expect to jump from animals to human. Sometimes you have to start somewhere in between.
And that's where boys like you and Henry come in.
Henry? What? Henry's dead?
Sure. You don't think these eyes grow on trees, do you? I let Henry have them for a while, and then he lost his head. With the help of the good doctor here.
Why settle for mere cosmetic surgery when you can sample all of Mother Nature?
Being beautiful is one thing, but in our business, having a few extra lives can come in handy.
Exactly. It's these little improvements that make us better equipped to do our work.
Oh, goodbye, Glenn.
It's all yours, Doctor.
Poor Glenn. I hope his Boo Cross policy's in force. Sounded to me like he got in his screamium just in time. So, How will you be paying today? Now that's a charge card.
The rain drummed steadily against the stained glass windows of St. Bridget's Church, each drop echoing like a tiny confession whispered from the heavens. Father Marcus stood in the shadowed sacristy, the musty scent of old wood and candle wax filling his lungs as he adjusted the worn collar of his clerical shirt. The evening had brought no peace. The small town of Black Hollow had a way of fermenting secrets, of turning whispered sins into something tangible, something that gnawed at the soul like a rat in the walls. Marcus had grown accustomed to the quiet dread of a parish that seemed to cradle guilt as tenderly as it did hope. But tonight, the air itself carried a heavier weight, a trembling anticipation that made his heart beat unevenly. He had been expecting someone, a penitent, a sinner desperate enough to seek absolution, but the presence that arrived was more unsettling than he had imagined. The door creaked open, a slow, almost theatrical sound, and a man entered, his coat dripping with rainwater, leaving dark puddles on the stone floor. His eyes were the kind that bore into the marrow, pale and unsettling, like winter sunlight refracted through ice. He was tall, unnervingly still, and he didn't offer the polite nod of a parishioner seeking sanctuary. Instead, he stood rigidly, as if weighing the room with unseen scales. "Father," the man began, his voice low, smooth, almost hypnotic, "I have come to confess something beyond the ordinary." Marcus felt a chill crawl up his spine. The phrase was ordinary enough, but the way it was delivered, with an unnatural calm, set every nerve on edge. "Everyone's sins are extraordinary in their own way," Marcus replied cautiously, motioning for the man to take a seat on the wooden pew. But the man didn't move. He simply lingered at the threshold, like a shadow that had grown flesh. "I don't mean ordinary sins, Father. I mean the kind that linger, the kind that cling to the air like smoke, the kind that demand attention." Marcus swallowed. He had heard such talk in the confessions of others, men and women who framed their guilt as if it were a character in a story. But there was something about this man, something almost tangible, that made the priest's stomach knot. "Then speak, my son," Marcus said, trying to steady his voice. "The confessional is a place for truth, no matter how dark." The man's lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. "I wonder, Father, if you are prepared for the truth, if anyone truly is." The priest's eyes narrowed. There was a subtle threat in the way the words lingered, a promise of revelation that seemed more like a warning than an invitation. He gestured again, more insistently this time. "Sit, confess, and let the Lord guide your soul." Finally, the man obeyed, sliding onto the edge of the pew. His presence seemed to absorb the light, darkening the corners of the sacristy, making the flickering candle flames tremble as if they sensed some invisible force. "My name," the man said slowly, "is Adrian Hale. I suppose you could call me a man who has grown bored of small sins. I have experimented, Father, pushed boundaries, observed reactions, and now I fear I may have gone too far." Marcus's hand tightened around the edge of the pew. "Too far? In what way? Speak clearly." Adrian Hale laughed softly, the sound hollow and echoing off the stone walls. "You have heard of murder, of theft, of betrayal. But have you heard of someone who sins for the sake of the confession itself? Who sins to see the look in a priest's eyes? That is what I am, Father. I enjoy the act of confession as much as the act of sinning." The words hung between them like a noose. Marcus forced himself to remain calm, though the priest in him quivered at the darkness in Adrian's tone. "Such games with God's grace are dangerous. You toy with forces far beyond your understanding, if you are truly repentant." "I am not," Adrian interjected sharply, leaning forward just enough for Marcus to catch the faint scent of iron beneath the rain. Blood, perhaps, or something older, more metallic. "Repentance is for the weak. I am honest, Father. That is more than many can claim. I do not hide behind prayers or excuses. I confront my actions, revel in them, and then I confess to see. If is something. Was as so as that's all to mottos those all so you do. Yes, I know. Did. Marcus felt the air constrict around his lungs. The confessions he had heard over the years, the petty thefts, the lies, the fleeting affairs, none had carried the sense of deliberate cruelty, of conscious provocation. Adrian Hale was different. Why come to me? Marcus asked quietly. Why confess here in this holy place? Adrian tilted his head, studying him with eyes that seemed to pierce through to the marrow. Because, Father, you are curious. I can feel it in you. You are intrigued by the challenge, by the temptation to witness evil unfiltered. Admit it. You are not merely a shepherd of souls. You are a voyeur of sin. Marcus's mouth went dry. The accusation stung, though he knew deep down that there was a kernel of truth in it. Priests were human. Curiosity often mingled with duty. But this man's insight into his nature was unnerving. You test me, Marcus said, struggling for control. You provoke me with your words to see if I falter. Perhaps, Adrian replied, his voice almost a whisper now. Or perhaps I simply enjoy the clarity of truth. I have done things, Father, things that would make even the bravest soul shiver. I have harmed people, yes, but the real question is not what I have done, but why you feel the need to sit here and listen, knowing that the darkness in me mirrors the darkness in you. Marcus shook his head, trying to ward off the creeping sense of dread. The sacristy felt colder now, the shadows stretching unnaturally, as if alive, reaching toward him. Stop playing games. Speak plainly or leave. Adrian's lips curved once more, faintly, chillingly. Very well. I will be plain. I have killed, Father, several times. Each one carefully chosen. Each one perfect in its execution. I observed, I waited, I manipulated. And now I come to you, not for absolution, but to see if confession itself can sustain the weight of my crimes. If you can sit in the presence of truth and remain unshaken, that is my test. Marcus felt the walls tilt slightly, the candles guttering as a gust of wind sneaked through the cracked window. The priest in him wanted to flee, to call for help, to escape the oppressive darkness Adrian Hale had brought with him. Yet another part, a darker, unacknowledged part, wanted to hear more, to understand the mind that could commit such acts with such deliberate control. You speak of sins as if they were trophies, Marcus said, his voice a mixture of anger and fear. Do you feel no remorse? Remorse is a luxury, Adrian said, his eyes glinting in the candlelight. I feel satisfaction. I feel curiosity. I feel the thrill of knowing that my actions leave an indelible mark on the world and on those who witness them. And now, Father, I am curious to see what marks my confessions leave on you. Marcus's stomach churned. The priest had seen many kinds of evil, but there was something in Adrian Hale that made even the seasoned clergyman's knees weak. This was not random cruelty. This was a deliberate, methodical engagement with sin, a dance with darkness that demanded a partner. Why confess here? Marcus asked again, more insistently. Why not hide like others? Adrian leaned back, spreading his hands as if offering the answer on a silver platter. Because, Father, the confession is a mirror. When you hear my truth, you see your own shadows reflected back, and in seeing them, you realize that perhaps there is no light without darkness, no good without evil. I bring this darkness to you because I know you need to confront it. The priest felt a cold bead of sweat trace his spine. Adrian Hale's words were precise, surgical in their effect, carving away at Marcus's certainty, leaving a hollow where conviction had once resided. And if I refuse to listen? Marcus asked, his voice steady, though every instinct screamed to leave, to flee. Adrian smiled, a thin, humorless smile. "You cannot refuse, Father. You are bound by duty, by faith, by curiosity, and most importantly, by the simple truth that no one can resist hearing a story of darkness. You are trapped in the confessional, whether you know it or not, and in the telling, in the listening, something will change. Perhaps not for me, but for you." Marcus's mind raced. The storm outside seemed to intensify, wind whipping against the windows as if echoing the turmoil within the sacristy. The priest wondered briefly if this was a test, a trick of the mind, or if the man sitting before him truly embodied some greater evil. He felt the old, familiar pulse of fear, the sacred terror that accompanied any confrontation with sin so unrelenting, so unapologetic. "I will hear your confession," Marcus said finally, his voice trembling with the weight of responsibility and dread. "But understand this, there is grace, even for you, if you seek it. You may speak freely, but you must know, sin has consequences." Adrian Hale nodded slowly. "Consequences, yes. And yet, isn't that part of the thrill? To stand at the edge of what is permitted, to confront judgment, to see if the walls themselves bend under the weight of truth." The candlelight flickered once more, casting long, jagged shadows that seemed to writhe across the stone walls like living things. Marcus swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the pew as he prepared to hear the first details of Adrian Hale's carefully orchestrated sins, a story that would test his faith, his courage, and perhaps even the limits of human morality. Outside, the rain fell harder. Inside, the confessional became a chamber not of absolution, but of revelation, a place where secrets would unravel, where darkness would speak, and where one man's confession might change the course of another's soul forever. Adrian Hale exhaled slowly, his eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Shall we begin, Father?" Marcus nodded, though his hands shook. He could not have anticipated what he was about to hear, or the price he would pay for listening. The confession had begun, and the storm outside was nothing compared to the one that had just entered the sacristy. Adrian Hale's fingers drummed lightly on his knees, a rhythm that seemed to echo the storm outside. Marcus forced himself to breathe steadily, though each inhale felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of impending revelation pressed against his chest. He had learned long ago that listening, truly listening, to a confession was as much an act of endurance as an act of faith. But tonight, he realized, endurance might not be enough. "I suppose I should begin with the first," Adrian said, his tone casual, almost bored, as though recounting banal memories instead of acts of deliberate horror. "It was years ago, back when I lived in the city. I had opportunities, small ones at first, things people might dismiss as accidents or coincidences. A push here, a suggestion there, and yet each decision left a ripple." Marcus clenched his fists. Every fiber of his being urged him to stop the man, to prevent what he suspected were atrocities yet to be revealed. But duty demanded that he listen, and perhaps, he thought grimly, understanding the depth of evil was the first step toward salvation, not for Adrian, but for anyone who might cross his path. "I watched a man fall down a staircase," Adrian continued, his voice calm, measured, as if discussing the weather rather than a life extinguished. "It was an accident, of course, in the eyes of others, but I had given the staircase a little encouragement, a slight polish on the step. He slipped. That was all it took. A life ended, and no one suspected a thing. The thrill was intoxicating. Not the act itself, but the knowledge that I had orchestrated it so perfectly." Marcus's mouth went dry. He had heard of calculated cruelty, but the ease with which Adrian recounted it, the casual precision of a man describing a chess move, sent a shiver crawling down his spine. "You take pleasure in this," Marcus said quietly, almost a whisper. "You enjoy the manipulation, the control." "Control is a comforting illusion, Father," Adrian replied. "But yes, there is a thrill in seeing the fragility of life, the way people dance on the edge without even realizing it. And yet, that was merely the beginning." Adrian's gaze shifted, fixing Marcus with an intensity that made the priest's knees ache. "After that, I sought more. I wanted to see how far I could push, to observe reactions, to test the moral limits of those around me. People think themselves clever, Father, think themselves immune to temptation, but everyone has a shadow. Everyone has a corner of their conscience they avoid, a hidden desire they dare not speak aloud. My job, my pleasure, was to expose it. Marcus swallowed hard. The sacristy seemed colder now, the shadows deeper, the flickering candlelight trembling as if in fear. "And did you?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Did you expose them?" "Oh, yes," Adrian said smoothly. "I watched men betray their closest friends for a few coins. I watched lovers plot betrayal, whispering secrets they thought hidden. I observed jealousy, greed, lust, everything that simmers beneath polite conversation, and I nudged, just slightly, enough to see the darkness manifest. Each confession I hear now, Father, each whisper of guilt from the faithful, it reminds me of how predictable humans are, how easily they fall." Marcus shivered. He had devoted his life to guiding souls, to offering absolution, to standing between men and women and the weight of their sins. Yet here sat a man who turned sin into a game, who exploited human weakness for his own curiosity. He felt the old, familiar pulse of anger and fear, mingled with a creeping sense of helplessness. "Why come here? Why confess?" Marcus asked again, voice steadier than he felt. "You could hide. You could vanish into the shadows of your deeds. Why seek me out?" Adrian's smile returned, thin and sharp. "Because, Father, I wanted an audience. Not just any audience, but one bound by faith, by duty, by the sacred act of confession itself. I wanted to see if a man who hears confessions, who is trained to absolve sins, can maintain his composure when confronted with deliberate malevolence. Can you forgive what cannot be forgiven? Can you remain unshaken when faced with someone who has no conscience?" Marcus's heart pounded. The priest in him recoiled, but another part, a darker, more curious part, leaned forward, straining to hear every word. He felt trapped, a participant in a moral experiment orchestrated by a man who reveled in human fragility. "Tell me," Marcus said finally, "the details. Speak plainly, and do not test me with riddles or insinuations." Adrian leaned back, the candlelight casting jagged shadows across his angular face. "Very well. After the man on the staircase, I turned my attention to more deliberate acts. I studied people I considered deserving, people who would not be missed, people whose absence would not raise alarms for long. I manipulated circumstances, created accidents, ensured that blame would fall elsewhere, and each time I watched the world continue as if nothing had happened. That, Father, is the ultimate test, to see if life notices the absence of a life." Marcus felt bile rise in his throat. He had encountered sin in many forms, but never so clinical, so calculated, so utterly devoid of remorse. Yet Adrian's presence carried another layer, a challenge that Marcus could not ignore. He was not merely a listener. He had become a participant, bound by curiosity and conscience alike. "And the others?" Marcus asked cautiously. How many have suffered at your hand?" Adrian tilted his head, considering the question with almost mathematical precision. "Enough," he said simply. "Enough to satisfy my curiosity, enough to test the limits of morality, enough to understand the reactions of those around me. And yet, there is always more. Always another opportunity, another shadow to explore. Life is a puzzle, Father, and I am both observer and participant. I am the catalyst." The room fell silent except for the relentless drum of rain against the stained glass. Marcus struggled to steady his shaking hands, to remain anchored in faith and reason. He had studied evil in texts, in confessions, in whispered tales of crimes that chilled the soul. But this man, Adrian Hale, embodied it in a living, breathing form. The horror was not merely in the acts, but in the calm, measured delight with which they were recounted. "You speak of this as if it were art," Marcus said finally. "As if causing suffering is aesthetic." "Precisely," Adrian replied, eyes glinting. "Art requires a canvas, a medium, a subject. Human behavior provides all three. Each act is a stroke, each consequence a shade, each reaction a texture. And confession. Confession is the gallery, the place where the audience confronts the work. You, Father, are the critic. You observe, analyze, and decide whether the creation is worthy. That is why I came to you. Only someone trained to listen, trained to evaluate morality, can appreciate the intricacy of my portfolio. Marcus felt a shiver of revulsion and fascination. He had never encountered someone so audacious, so unrepentant, yet so articulate in the orchestration of their crimes. He wanted to stop him, to denounce him, to run, but the sacred duty of a priest, the call to witness confession, held him rooted. He could not, would not, turn away. And yet, Marcus said quietly, there is a darkness in you, but there is also fear. Do you fear judgment? Adrian's smile returned, sharper this time, almost predatory. Fear is a tool, Father, a lens through which one sees the fragility of morality. I fear only being misunderstood, only the world failing to grasp the precision, the intent, the artistry of what I do. Judgment is inevitable, but it is not the same as fear. Fear is weakness. I am not weak. Marcus's mind reeled. Every instinct screamed at him to act, to intervene, to alert someone, anyone, but he remained, anchored by the invisible chains of duty, compelled to listen, to confront, to bear witness to a darkness that seemed to stretch beyond human comprehension. You test me, then, Marcus said, voice trembling, though he forced calm over it. You test my resolve, my faith, my very understanding of sin, and you will not stop until you have measured me completely. Adrian leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes piercing. Yes, Father, you feel it, don't you? The tug, the curiosity, the dread. You are part of this now, and that is the point. I do not simply commit acts, I draw others into them, whether they realize it or not. Each confession, each word you hear, each reaction you feel, it is all part of the experiment. And I am precise in my experiments. Marcus closed his eyes for a brief moment, trying to steady his racing heart, to summon the faith that had guided him through decades of ministry. He felt the weight of the storm outside and the storm within, a dual tempest that threatened to consume him entirely. And yet, he could not turn away. He could not ignore the confession that had begun, knowing, deep down, that the story Adrian Hale would reveal might challenge everything he believed about morality, faith, and the human soul. Outside, the rain battered the roof with relentless fury. Inside, the confessional had become a crucible of revelation, a chamber where sin and virtue collided, where one man's meticulous malevolence would test the limits of another man's conscience. Marcus braced himself. He was no longer merely a priest listening to a confession. He was a witness to a darkness that sought to measure him, to probe him, to confront him with the unflinching reality of human cruelty. Adrian Hale's next words, Marcus knew, would mark the beginning of a descent into truths far darker than any sermon, any scripture, any shadowed tale from the annals of sin. And when they began, there would be no turning back. "Shall I continue, Father?" Adrian asked softly, almost tenderly, the candlelight glinting in his cold eyes. "There is more to reveal, much more." Marcus nodded slowly, fear and fascination intertwining. "Yes, continue. Let the confession proceed." The storm outside was nothing compared to the one that had just begun within the walls of St. Brigid's. And in that storm, Marcus understood, lay a test that would stretch far beyond ordinary sin. Adrian Hale's eyes glimmered in the dim candlelight as he leaned slightly closer, the faint scent of damp rain clinging to him like an invisible shroud. Marcus felt a cold prickle at the back of his neck, the kind that crawls beneath your skin when instinct warns of unseen danger. And yet, he could not look away. Duty bound him, morality anchored him, but curiosity, his own dark, unspoken curiosity, pulled him forward, deeper into the unfolding confession. "You wish to hear more?" Adrian said softly, as if reading Marcus's thoughts. "Very well. The first few acts were merely tests, small experiments to gauge my own capacity and the reactions of those around me. But the real artistry, Father, comes when one begins to manipulate life itself, not through force, not through chance, but through the subtle orchestration of circumstance. Marcus swallowed, feeling the weight of Adrian's words settle like stones on his chest. The priest in him wanted to deny, to shut the man out, but the human in him, the man who had always been drawn to mysteries, to shadows, hungered for the truth, however grim. "I had a neighbor once," Adrian continued, his voice a low, deliberate murmur. "A widow, elderly, fragile. She believed in the sanctity of kindness, the morality of small gestures. I admired that. Such innocence is rare, but I was curious to see how easily it could be broken." Marcus shifted in his seat, unease coiling around him like a serpent. "And?" he asked cautiously. Adrian's thin smile returned. "And I tested it. I manipulated her daily life. Small things at first. A misplaced letter, a phone call ignored, a window left unlocked. Each tiny event was enough to sow doubt, to stir anxiety, to erode her sense of security. I observed her reactions, the subtle tremor in her voice when she spoke, the hesitant way she moved through her home, and when she began to crumble under the weight of my influence, it was exquisite, not the suffering itself, but the realization that life can be shaped, even twisted, by the slightest intervention. That is, art, Father. That is what I do." Marcus's hands clenched tightly. The horror of deliberate, calculated cruelty was nothing new to him, but the precision, the cold detachment with which Adrian described it made the priest's stomach churn. He had heard confessions of theft, lies, even occasional violence, but never had he been confronted with someone who treated human fragility as a canvas for manipulation. "And the widow?" Marcus asked, voice trembling slightly despite his efforts to remain composed. What became of her?" Adrian's eyes seemed to glint with satisfaction. "She moved away shortly thereafter, claimed she felt unsafe in her own home, though she never suspected the true cause. And why should she? All the clues were subtle, invisible to the casual observer. The beauty of the work, Father, is that no one need ever know. The effect exists, the outcome is complete, and yet the world continues, untainted, unaware." Marcus swallowed hard. The priest in him recoiled from the notion of such deliberate manipulation. And yet, an unbidden thought flickered across his mind. The man before him was methodical, intelligent, precise. There was a cold brilliance to his actions, a clarity that made the horror almost mesmerizing. "You are describing control," Marcus said, voice barely above a whisper. "You seek to control everything and everyone, and yet you come here to confess. Why?" Adrian leaned back, a faint chuckle escaping his lips. "Because confession is a crucible, Father. Because in confessing, I reveal not just my actions, but the intricate weave of cause and effect that guides them. I seek an audience capable of discerning the pattern, someone who can witness without collapsing under the weight of truth. And you, Father, are uniquely suited to that role. You listen, analyze, judge, not as a man, not as a citizen, but as a shepherd of souls. And in listening, you become complicit. You feel the pull of curiosity, the fascination with darkness. That is why I am here. That is why I confess." Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. He had encountered evil before, had guided souls through the murkiest depths of guilt, fear, and despair. But this was different. This was not sin seeking redemption. It was sin as performance, as provocation, as deliberate engagement with the observer. He felt exposed, measured, judged by a man whose morality was as alien as the darkness that now seemed to wrap around the sacristy like living smoke. "And yet," Marcus said finally, struggling to keep his voice steady, "there is still a part of you that fears." "Fear of what?" Adrian's smile widened, but it was devoid of warmth. "Fear of mediocrity. Fear that the world will fail to recognize the complexity, the precision, the artistry of my actions. Fear that I will be remembered as a common criminal rather than a conductor of intricate symphonies of cause and effect. Fear is, after all, a measure. It is the gauge by which one tests the resonance of their influence on others. I do not fear death, Father. I do not fear punishment. I fear being misunderstood. Marcus felt a pang of revulsion and fascination intertwining. He wanted to condemn Adrian, to call upon divine authority to banish this malevolence from the world. Yet he could not ignore the hypnotic logic, the meticulous reasoning, the almost magnetic pull of a mind so coldly brilliant in its cruelty. "And what of the people you have affected?" Marcus asked, voice trembling with suppressed anger. "The lives you have upended, the fear you have sown, the destruction you have caused." Adrian's gaze softened, not with remorse, but with a detached satisfaction. "They are the instruments, Father. Every reaction, every emotion, every misstep is part of a larger composition. Each life touched, each shadow cast, contributes to a greater understanding of human behavior. The consequences exist, yes, but they are secondary. The experiment, the observation, the pattern, that is primary. That is why I am here, why I confess. To see if the observer can grasp the full scope, can witness without flinching, can maintain composure in the presence of unadulterated truth." Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees, trying to anchor himself in reason, in faith, in the belief that even the darkest confessions could be met with compassion and understanding. And yet, Adrian's presence, his words, the precision of his self-described artistry, threatened to unravel all that he had known. "You are meticulous," Marcus said finally. "Calculated. You take pleasure not in mere harm, but in the orchestration of it, in the observation, in the study of consequence." "Exactly," Adrian said, his tone soft but unwavering. "Harm is a tool, a medium, a vehicle for understanding. The act itself is merely the first layer. The true fascination lies in the ripples, the reactions, the echoes of choice and chance. And in confession, I reveal not just my actions, but the intricate dance of influence that accompanies them. It is exquisite." Marcus felt a dizzying mixture of horror and reluctant admiration. He had never encountered such deliberate, almost artistic malevolence, nor had he ever been drawn into the orbit of someone so unflinchingly self-aware. Every instinct screamed at him to stop listening, to flee, to call for help, but duty, curiosity, and a perverse sense of fascination held him in place, bound to witness the confession in its entirety. "Do you feel any remorse?" Marcus asked, voice trembling. "Any regret for the lives you have destroyed?" Adrian tilted his head, eyes gleaming in the flickering candlelight. "Regret implies a desire to undo, to change the past. I do not seek to undo. Each act, each consequence, each reaction is integral to the pattern I have woven. To regret would be to undermine the precision of the design. And design, Father, is what I cherish above all else." Marcus pressed his hands to his face briefly, inhaling deeply to steady the nausea that threatened to overwhelm him. He had heard sins confessed before, he had absolved the guilty, guided the lost, witnessed the weight of human frailty. But never had he been so directly confronted with a mind so methodical, so deliberate, so unflinchingly committed to the orchestration of suffering as a means of comprehension and control. "You speak as if morality is a game," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost fearful of the power his words might unleash. "As if conscience is merely an obstacle to be observed and manipulated." Adrian's smile was thin, cold, and satisfied. "Morality is context, Father. Conscience is perception. Both are tools, both are constructs. To manipulate them is not evil, it is understanding. To observe them, to interact, to test them, that is the art. And confession, Father, is merely the final brushstroke, the moment when the canvas is revealed to the critic. That is why I am here. That is why I reveal myself to you. You are my audience, my judge, my mirror, and in your reflection, I see everything." Marcus felt the walls of the sacristy close in, the candlelight quivering as if afraid, the shadows stretching unnaturally, reaching toward him. He understood with a sickening clarity that the confession was no longer about absolution. It was about observation, about engagement, about a dance between darkness and duty in which he had been unwillingly enmeshed. Adrian Hale exhaled slowly, letting the weight of his words settle. The storm outside a distant echo compared to the storm he had summoned within Marcus's mind. "Shall we continue, Father?" he asked, almost tenderly, eyes glinting with expectation. "There is still more to reveal, and much more to witness." Marcus nodded, swallowing hard, gripping the edge of the pew. The confession had only begun, yet he felt the inexorable pull of the unfolding darkness, a force that threatened to strip away certainty, morality, and peace. The storm inside him was nothing compared to the storm Adrian Hale had unleashed. And as the rain beat relentlessly against the stained glass, Marcus knew there was no turning back. The truth, in all its meticulous, calculated horror, awaited him, and he would hear it, for better or worse. Marcus took a deep, trembling breath and braced himself. The sacristy seemed darker now, the shadows coiling around the corners of the room as if they had grown teeth. The storm outside had not relented. The rain lashed against the stained glass with a fury that mirrored the turmoil inside him. And yet, he remained, compelled to listen, compelled by duty, curiosity, and an unacknowledged dread that gnawed at his resolve. Adrian Hale's expression was one of calm anticipation, the faintest trace of amusement lurking behind his cold eyes. "You are tense," he observed softly, almost sympathetically. "Curious, fearful, yet unwilling to look away. That is the precise response I was hoping for. It is a confirmation that the confession is working, that the truth resonates as intended." Marcus clenched his fists on his knees, trying to steady himself. "You speak of this as if it is a game," he said, voice low, strained. "You speak of manipulating lives as if they were pieces on a chessboard, as if suffering were a tool rather than a consequence." "Exactly," Adrian said, his tone almost lyrical. "Suffering is the medium, not the goal. The act itself is merely the first layer, a means to an end. The end is observation, understanding, the subtle orchestration of cause and effect. Every glance, every hesitation, every whispered doubt, these are the real outcomes. The consequences that matter are the ones unseen, the ripples that extend beyond the immediate, the reactions that reveal the true nature of those touched by my influence." Marcus felt bile rise in his throat, a mix of revulsion and fascination. He had never confronted sin described with such clinical precision, such detached artistry. The priest in him recoiled, yet a dark curiosity whispered that understanding the mind of Adrian Hale might be a grim form of revelation, a lesson in the depths of human depravity. "You spoke of others," Marcus said, cautiously, voice quivering despite his effort to remain composed. "Those you have influenced, how far have you taken your experiments?" Adrian's thin lips curved into a faint smile. "Far enough to learn, far enough to observe the fragility of human morality under pressure, far enough to witness the hidden truths that people bury beneath layers of civility. Let me give you an example." He paused, eyes glinting in the flickering candlelight. There was a man, a banker, meticulous, methodical, respected. He prided himself on integrity, and yet he had a weakness, a secret desire that he believed hidden. I became aware of it, subtly nudged circumstances, and watched as his carefully constructed facade began to crack. First, small lies, easily dismissed. Then, minor transgressions, each one building, accumulating, until the man who once commanded respect now trembled under the weight of his own choices. He was aware of nothing but the pressure, the invisible strings, and I observed, meticulously recording the transformation. That, Father, is the real power, the ability to see what humans are capable of when left unguarded, when their conscience is tested. Marcus's hands shook. The horror was not merely in the act but in the method, in the cold, deliberate orchestration of human weakness. He had heard confessions of murder, theft, adultery, but never had he witnessed a mind that viewed cruelty as research, suffering as data. "And you feel no remorse?" Marcus asked quietly, the words almost a plea. No compassion for those you manipulate, for the lives you unravel. Remorse is irrelevant, Adrian replied smoothly. Compassion is irrelevant. What matters is understanding. What matters is precision. I do not revel in pain for its own sake. I revel in knowledge, in the orchestration, in the artistry of influence. To regret would be to admit failure, and failure is unacceptable. Marcus exhaled slowly, forcing himself to remain seated. The priest in him wanted to flee, to abandon the confessional, to call for help. Yet something, perhaps curiosity, perhaps an unspoken challenge, kept him rooted. He realized with a shiver that he had become more than a listener. He had become an audience, a participant in a moral experiment of Adrian's design. And yet, Marcus said, his voice steadier, there must be boundaries. Even in observation, even in curiosity, there must be lines that should not be crossed. How far will you go before the consequences consume you? Adrian's smile widened slightly, but it was devoid of warmth. Boundaries are subjective, Father. Limits are constructs of the weak-minded, designed to reassure those who cannot face the truth. I am not constrained by such notions. The question is not whether I can continue. It is whether the observer can withstand the truth, can face the unfiltered reflection of human nature without flinching. And that, Father, is why I came to you. You are my crucible. Marcus's stomach churned. The words settled in his mind with the weight of inevitability, like stones dropped into a dark, silent lake. He had always believed in redemption, in forgiveness, in the power of confession to cleanse the soul. But Adrian Hale challenged every principle, every doctrine, every conviction he had ever held. This was no ordinary confession. This was a confrontation with deliberate, methodical darkness. You are drawn to chaos, Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. Not for the sake of destruction, but for understanding, for insight, for control. And yet you seek absolution in the act of confession itself. Why? What do you hope to gain from revealing your artistry? Adrian leaned forward slightly, his gaze intense. Validation, perhaps. Observation, certainly. Engagement, inevitably. The act of confession is a mirror, Father. It reflects not just my actions, but your reactions, your limits, your fears. It tests the observer as much as the observed. I seek to reveal, to challenge, to provoke, and in doing so, I measure the strength, the integrity, the resolve of the one who listens. That is why I am here, why I speak, why I confess. You are as much a participant as I am the confessor. Marcus felt the room tilt slightly, the candlelight trembling as if in response to the weight of Adrian's words. The shadows seemed to reach toward him, stretching, coiling, enveloping the sacristy in a darkness that was almost tactile. He understood with a sense of helpless awe that the confession was not merely about revelation. It was a performance, a test, a psychological assault designed to probe the limits of perception, morality, and faith. And the acts themselves? Marcus asked cautiously. How many have been orchestrated, manipulated, shaped by your hand? How many lives have been altered without their knowledge? Adrian's eyes gleamed, a faint smirk on his lips. Enough to understand, enough to observe, enough to measure the pattern. Each life is a data point, each reaction a variable, each consequence a brushstroke. The totality is magnificent. And yet, there is always more to discover, more to influence, more to test. That is why I confess, to witness the observer, to gauge the impact, to see if the truth can be heard without collapse. Marcus pressed his palms to his face briefly, inhaling deeply to steady the nausea that threatened to overwhelm him. The priest in him recoiled from the sheer scope of Adrian's manipulations, from the deliberate cruelty that had been described with such cold precision. Yet another part, a forbidden, unspoken part, was drawn to the logic, the intellect, the artistry of the method. He realized, with a sickening clarity, that he had become entwined in the very experiment Adrian had designed. Do you ever fear being caught? Marcus asked, his voice almost a whisper. Do you fear punishment, reprisal, justice? Adrian tilted his head thoughtfully. Caught? Perhaps. Punished? Only insofar as it becomes a variable in the pattern. Justice? That is a human construct, a fragile illusion. My fear is limited, to being misunderstood, to being misinterpreted, to having my artistry obscured by the moralistic lens of ordinary minds. Beyond that, there is little to fear. The consequences exist, but they are secondary to the observation, the orchestration, the revelation. Marcus exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of the pew. The priest in him wanted to condemn, to denounce, to flee. Yet he could not. He was bound by the act of listening, by the obligation of witness, by a compulsion that he did not fully understand. The confession had become a crucible in which his own resolve, morality, and faith were tested. You are unflinching, Marcus said finally, voice low. Unrepentant, precise, deliberate. And yet, you come to me for confession. What do you truly seek from this? Adrian leaned back, eyes gleaming in the candlelight, his smile thin and sharp. I seek observation, engagement, understanding, reflection, and in the process I measure the limits of the observer, the capacity for comprehension, the willingness to witness without collapsing under the weight of truth. You, Father, are my mirror, my audience, my judge. And in revealing myself to you, I complete the pattern, test the crucible, and fulfill the purpose of this confession. Marcus felt the shadows press closer, the candlelight flicker violently, the storm outside rising in tandem with the tempest in his mind. He understood, with chilling clarity, that this confession was no ordinary act of penance. It was a confrontation with deliberate darkness, a psychological experiment, a descent into the deliberate orchestration of human behavior. Adrian exhaled slowly, letting the silence stretch between them. The storm outside nothing compared to the storm he had unleashed within the sacristy. Shall we continue, Father? He asked softly, eyes glinting with anticipation. There is still much to reveal, and the truth only grows darker. Marcus nodded slowly, heart pounding, hands trembling, mind reeling. He was no longer merely a priest listening to a confession. He was a witness to methodical malevolence, a participant in a calculated exploration of darkness, and he understood with grim inevitability that there would be no turning back. The room seemed colder now, as if the storm outside had seeped through the walls and into the very bones of the sacristy. Marcus felt it in his chest, a slow, creeping chill that wrapped around his heart, mingling with the dread and fascination that held him in place. He had heard confessions before, of sins great and small, but none had ever carried the deliberate precision, the cold artistry, of Adrian Hale's revelations. Adrian leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity. You wonder how far this goes, he said, voice low, deliberate. You wonder what depths I have plumbed, what consequences I have orchestrated. The truth, Father, is that it is limitless. There is always another life, another reaction, another subtle shift in circumstance that can reveal more, teach more, expose more. Each individual is a puzzle, a variable, a note in the symphony of human behavior, and I am the composer. Marcus clenched his fists, trying to anchor himself. The notion was abhorrent, the cruelty unimaginable, yet the precision, the intelligence behind each manipulation, forced a grudging recognition of the methodical brilliance of it all. He had encountered evil before, yes, but never with this level of calculated artistry, this meticulous orchestration of human fragility. You speak of composition, Marcus said cautiously, voice strained, as if life itself is a canvas for your experiments, and yet you confess, you reveal yourself. Why? What do you hope to gain from this exposure? Adrian's smile was thin, sharp, almost predatory. Exposure is merely a tool, Father. The confession is the stage, the observer is the audience, and the revelation is both performance and measurement. In confessing, I reveal not just my actions, but the reactions they provoke. I test the observer, measure the limits of comprehension, gauge the resilience of morality. You are as much a part of this as any subject of my artistry." Marcus felt a wave of nausea. The confession was no longer about absolution, no longer about seeking forgiveness. It was about control, observation, and the delicate, terrifying orchestration of human behavior. He realized, with a sense of grim inevitability, that he had become a participant, a variable in Adrian Hale's experiment. "You manipulate lives," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost trembling. "You orchestrate outcomes, observe reactions, and take pleasure in the study itself. And yet, you come to me expecting what? Understanding? Approval? Or merely the acknowledgement of your brilliance?" Adrian tilted his head, eyes sharp in the flickering candlelight. "Understanding, certainly. Approval, perhaps. Acknowledgement. Only insofar as it confirms the resonance of my work. The true reward lies in observation, in engagement, in witnessing the impact of my actions not only on the manipulated, but on the observer. Confession is the final act, the revelation, the mirror reflecting the full pattern of cause and effect." Marcus pressed his hands to his face briefly, inhaling deeply to steady the tremor in his body. He had studied evil. He had guided souls through sin and repentance. He had witnessed the depths of human depravity, but never with such calculated, deliberate precision, never with the cold artistry that Adrian Hale displayed in every word, every pause, every carefully measured confession. "And the people themselves," Marcus said cautiously, voice low. "Do they ever suspect? The ones whose lives you shape, whose actions you influence. Do they ever recognize the orchestration? Rarely," Adrian said smoothly, almost musically. "Most believe themselves victims of chance, circumstance, fate. That is the beauty of the work. The world remains blissfully unaware of the hidden hand guiding events, of the subtle nudges, the invisible threads. The consequences are real, the outcomes tangible, but the orchestration remains unseen, appreciated only by the composer and the witness. That is why I am here, why I confess, why I reveal the intricacies of my craft. You are the witness, Father, the observer, the mirror reflecting the depth of comprehension." Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling the chill of the sacristy seep into his bones. The priest in him recoiled at the sheer audacity, the deliberate cruelty, the meticulous orchestration of manipulation. And yet, another part, darker and unspoken, was drawn to the intellect, the precision, the artistry. He realized with a jolt that he was no longer merely listening. He was learning, absorbing, and unwillingly participating in the confession as both audience and subject. "You measure me," Marcus said finally, voice strained. "You test my limits, my capacity for understanding, my ability to witness without faltering, and you will not stop until you have gauged me completely." "Exactly," Adrian said, a faint, almost approving smile on his lips. "The confessor becomes the observed, the listener becomes the measured. You are part of the pattern, Father, whether you wish to be or not. That is why I confess. That is why I reveal. You are my mirror, my audience, my participant in the unfolding symphony, and in witnessing, in enduring, in observing, you become part of the truth itself." Marcus felt a shiver crawl down his spine. The shadows in the sacristy seemed to deepen, to stretch toward him, to press upon him like a living thing. The storm outside had become inconsequential compared to the tempest Adrian Hale had conjured within the room, within his mind. He was no longer merely a priest hearing a confession. He was a witness to methodical malevolence, a participant in deliberate psychological manipulation, and a variable in an experiment whose outcome he could not predict. "And the acts themselves?" Marcus asked, voice low, almost a whisper. "How many have been orchestrated? Influenced, manipulated, how many lives altered without their knowledge?" Adrian's eyes gleamed, a flicker of amusement in the candlelight. "Enough to understand, enough to observe, enough to measure the subtle interplay of desire, fear, morality, and weakness. Each life is a note, each reaction a variable, each consequence a brushstroke on the canvas. The totality is magnificent. And yet, there is always more to discover, more to influence, more to test. That is why I confess, to see if the observer can endure, to measure the resonance, to witness without collapse. Marcus pressed his palms to his face briefly, inhaling deeply, forcing himself to remain. The horror of Adrian's deliberate manipulation, the cold precision of his cruelty, and the almost magnetic pull of his intellect created a dissonance that left Marcus both repelled and uncomfortably fascinated. He realized he was ensnared in a web of observation and orchestration, and that the confession was far from over. "You seek to expose," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper, "to reveal the truth not only of your actions, but of the observer as well. And in that exposure there are consequences. Perhaps not for you, but certainly for those who bear witness." "Exactly," Adrian said, his smile sharp, approving. "Truth is the consequence, Father. Observation is the consequence. Witnessing is the consequence. And in enduring, in listening, in comprehending, you too are transformed, whether you realize it or not. Shall we continue?" Marcus nodded slowly, heart pounding, hands trembling. The confession had only begun, yet he felt the inexorable pull of Adrian Hale's darkness, a force that threatened to strip away certainty, morality, and peace. He understood with grim inevitability that there would be no turning back. The storm outside raged, relentless, its fury mirrored in the tempest within the sacristy. The confession was no longer a mere act of penance or revelation. It was a crucible, a test, a psychological exploration of the deepest, darkest reaches of human behavior. Marcus knew he would bear witness to truths far darker than any he had encountered, and that in doing so, he himself would be irrevocably changed. Adrian leaned back, eyes gleaming in the candlelight, a faint chuckle escaping him. "There is still more, Father. More to reveal, more to observe, more to measure. Are you prepared to continue?" Marcus nodded slowly, swallowing hard. He had no choice. The path was set, the confession unfolding, and the storm, both outside and within, showed no sign of abating. The darkness was patient, deliberate, inexorable, and he was trapped in its orbit, a witness to methodical malevolence, a participant in deliberate orchestration, and a keeper of truths that would haunt him long after the storm had passed. The candlelight flickered as Marcus leaned back in the pew, the weight of Adrian Hale's words pressing against him like the relentless storm outside. The room seemed smaller, the shadows more oppressive, curling around the corners of the sacristy and stretching toward him with an almost sentient presence. Each word Adrian spoke was another layer of darkness, another thread in the web that ensnared Marcus in a dance of revelation and dread. "You wonder, I am certain," Adrian began, voice low, smooth, deliberate, "why I have chosen you, of all the possible confessions to encounter, as my audience. You are neither the first nor the last. You are not the most complicit, nor the most innocent, but you are observant, introspective, and uncommonly perceptive. The crucible of confession requires a witness who can endure the unfolding truth, who can absorb the implications without fleeing. You, Father, have proven yourself suitable." Marcus's hands pressed against his knees, gripping the fabric of his cassock as if it could anchor him to reality. "Suitable?" he repeated, voice strained. "You mean, you test us, you test me, and the confession is less about absolution than it is about observation." "Precisely," Adrian said with a faint, approving smile. "The confession is the stage upon which the orchestra of human nature performs. You are not simply a listener, you are a participant, a measure, a mirror. Each reaction you produce, each shiver, each hesitation, each flicker of comprehension. These are data points, Father, instruments in the symphony of cause and effect that I conduct." Marcus felt a chill creep up his spine. The storm outside was a mere echo of the storm Adrian had unleashed inside the sacristy, inside the room, inside his mind. Every detail, every pause, Every carefully measured word was a deliberate probe, designed to test, to reveal, to measure the resilience of his faith, morality, and intellect. "You speak of orchestration," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper, as if human behavior were an experiment, a canvas for your study, and yet, in doing so, you inflict suffering. You manipulate, you provoke, you push people to their breaking points. Do you regret none of it? Adrian shook his head slowly, eyes glinting in the candlelight. "Regret is a weakness, Father. Remorse is a limitation. Compassion is a tool, not a necessity. I do not delight in suffering for its own sake, nor do I seek cruelty for vanity. I seek understanding. I seek observation. I seek the truth of human nature, revealed under controlled circumstances. And in doing so, I measure, I analyze, I learn. The world is predictable, Father, if one knows how to observe and orchestrate the interplay of desire, fear, conscience, and circumstance." Marcus swallowed hard. The horror of it, the meticulous precision, the cold artistry, the lack of moral restraint was nearly unbearable. Yet he could not look away. He realized, with a disquieting clarity, that he was not merely a witness. He had become a participant, drawn into the orbit of Adrian Hale's orchestrations, a subject in the crucible of deliberate darkness. "You manipulate lives," Marcus said, voice low, strained with tension. "You guide actions, provoke decisions, engineer outcomes. And yet, you seek confession. Why? To test me? To measure my capacity for comprehension? To see if I can endure the truth without collapsing?" Adrian leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed intently on Marcus. "Exactly. You are as much a part of this as any individual whose life I have touched. The confessor becomes the observed, the listener becomes the measured, and the revelation serves as both performance and test. The confession is never merely about absolution. It is about engagement, about resonance, about endurance." Marcus exhaled slowly, trying to steady the trembling that threatened to undo him. The priest in him recoiled from the deliberate cruelty, the cold calculation, the artistry of manipulation, and yet a darker, unspoken fascination lurked beneath the revulsion. He could not deny the intellect, the precision, the sheer, unflinching clarity of Adrian's method. He was trapped, unwillingly, in a dance he did not fully understand but could not resist observing. "And the outcomes," Marcus said finally, voice barely above a whisper. "Do the people themselves know? Do they suspect, even in the smallest way, the orchestration behind their lives?" "Rarely," Adrian replied smoothly. "Most believe themselves subject to chance, circumstance, fate. Few perceive the hidden threads, the subtle nudges, the invisible hand guiding their actions. That is the beauty of it. The world continues, unknowing, as if nothing has happened, while the orchestration remains intact. Only the observer, only the witness, understands the full pattern." Marcus pressed his palms to his face briefly, drawing a shaky breath. The horror was compounded by the realization that he, too, was now entwined in the pattern. He was not merely listening, he was being tested, observed, measured. His reactions, his fears, his moral compass were now variables in Adrian Hale's meticulously crafted experiment. "You seek not absolution," Marcus said finally, voice trembling, "nor redemption. You seek validation, perhaps, but above all, observation, engagement. Proof of your method, your artistry." "Exactly," Adrian said, a thin, approving smile curling his lips. "Observation is the reward, Father. Engagement is the reward. Comprehension is the reward. The confession is the vehicle, the stage, the mirror. And in enduring, in witnessing, in comprehending, the observer becomes part of the truth itself. You, too, Father, are a participant in the revelation. And that is why I confess, why I reveal, why I measure, why I orchestrate. The crucible is complete only when both parties are engaged." Marcus felt the shadows pressing closer, the candlelight flickering violently as if reacting to the intensity of the revelation. The storm outside, relentless, seemed trivial in comparison to the storm inside, the storm of deliberate, methodical darkness that had settled upon the sacristy. He understood, with chilling clarity, that this confession was not an end, but a beginning, a descent into the orchestration of human behavior, the measurement of morality, the exposure of the fragile boundaries that separated conscience from desire. "You will continue," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. "There is more to reveal, more to test, more to measure, and I will endure. I have no choice." Adrian leaned back, eyes gleaming in the candlelight, the faintest chuckle escaping him. "Indeed. The truth is inexhaustible, Father. The orchestration is limitless. The engagement is eternal. And in witnessing, in absorbing, in enduring, you become part of the symphony, the crucible, the revelation. Are you prepared to continue?" Marcus nodded slowly, though his heart pounded and his hands trembled. The confession had begun as a test, had evolved into a revelation, and now threatened to consume him entirely. He was trapped in the orbit of Adrian Hale's deliberate darkness, drawn inexorably deeper into the meticulous orchestration of human behavior, the symphony of cause and effect, the dance of manipulation and observation. Outside, the storm raged on, rain pounding the roof and walls in a relentless torrent. Inside, the sacristy was a chamber of shadows and candlelight, of revelation and dread, of deliberate cruelty and meticulous precision. Marcus knew, with grim inevitability, that he would bear witness to truths far darker than any he had ever imagined. And he understood that in listening, in enduring, in absorbing, he himself would be irrevocably changed. Adrian's eyes glinted with the anticipation of a predator, a conductor, a master of human orchestration. "There is more to reveal," he said softly, almost a whisper. "Shall we proceed?" Marcus swallowed, nodded, and braced himself. The confession was far from over. The storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest within the sacristy. And as Adrian Hale leaned forward, ready to unleash another wave of revelation, Marcus realized, with chilling clarity, that there would be no turning back. The shadows seemed to shift and lengthen. The candlelight trembled, and the storm outside mirrored the storm inside. The crucible was set, the stage was prepared, and Marcus was both witness and participant, caught in the inexorable pull of deliberate darkness, engaged in a confession that would leave no soul untouched. Marcus could feel the storm within the sacristy growing heavier, more suffocating, as if the very air had thickened around him. The candlelight flickered violently, throwing long, quivering shadows across the stone walls, shadows that seemed to pulse with Adrian Hale's presence. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing the weight of what he had already learned, and the dread of what was still to come. Adrian leaned forward, fingers steepled, eyes glinting with a deliberate intensity. "You wonder what comes next," he said softly, almost conspiratorially. "Why I have chosen this confessional, this priest, this moment. It is not mere chance, Father. Every act, every choice, every detail of this meeting has been orchestrated to perfection. The confession is more than revelation. It is a crucible, a test, a stage upon which truth is displayed in its purest, most unadulterated form." Marcus swallowed hard, trying to steady the tremor in his hands. "A test," he repeated, "of me, of my faith, of my understanding. And yet, it is also a performance. You reveal not only your acts, but your method, your purpose, your philosophy. And I am compelled to watch, to listen, to endure." "Exactly," Adrian said, a faint, approving smile on his lips. "Observation is the true reward, Father. Comprehension, endurance, engagement, these are the instruments of revelation. You are no mere listener. You are a participant, a mirror, a measure of the resonance of truth. Each flinch, each hesitation, each internal struggle, they are all noted, all measured, all recorded in the theater of understanding." Marcus pressed his palms against his face briefly, trying to quell the nausea that threatened to overtake him. He had studied sin, had guided penitent souls through their darkest hours, had confronted evil in many forms, but never had he faced deliberate, methodical cruelty with such precise artistry. He realized with a sinking sense of inevitability that he had become entangled in the confession, no longer merely a witness but an unwilling participant in the orchestration of human darkness. "You manipulate lives," Marcus said finally, voice strained. "You orchestrate outcomes, provoke reactions, engineer consequences. And yet, you come to me to confess. Why? To test me? To measure my capacity for comprehension? To see if I can endure without collapsing?" Adrian's eyes gleamed in the flickering candlelight, sharp and calculating. "Precisely. You are as much a subject of observation as any individual whose life I have influenced. The confessor becomes the observed. The listener becomes the measured. The act of confession is never merely an appeal for absolution. It is a performance, a test, and a revelation all at once. You are the crucible in which truth is forged." Marcus exhaled slowly, trying to calm the trembling that ran through him. The priest within recoiled at the deliberate cruelty, at the meticulous precision, at the cold artistry of Adrian's manipulations. And yet, there was a part of him, dark, unspoken, that could not help but recognize the brilliance, the intelligence, the almost hypnotic clarity of Adrian's method. He was caught in a web he did not fully comprehend, unable to look away, unable to escape. "And the outcomes," Marcus said, voice low, almost a whisper. "Do the people themselves ever know? Do they ever suspect, even slightly, the manipulation behind their lives?" "Rarely," Adrian said smoothly, his tone almost musical. "Most believe themselves victims of chance, circumstance, fate. Only a few ever glimpse the threads that guide them, the invisible hand that steers their choices. And even then, they rarely comprehend the pattern in its entirety. That is the beauty of it. The orchestration remains hidden, perfect, and complete. Only the observer understands the full design, the complete symphony of cause and effect." Marcus pressed his hands to his face again, inhaling deeply. The horror of it, the deliberate manipulation, the calculated cruelty, the unflinching control over the lives of others, was nearly unbearable. And yet, he could not turn away. He was both repelled and captivated, caught in the gravitational pull of Adrian Hale's intellect, his artistry, his orchestrated darkness. "You speak of observation," Marcus said finally, voice strained, "as if it is the ultimate reward. And yet, you risk exposure, discovery, retribution. Do you not fear the consequences?" Adrian's smile was thin, precise, almost predatory. "Consequences are part of the pattern, Father. They exist, certainly, but they are secondary to the orchestration, to the observation, to the resonance of truth. Fear is irrelevant, unless it serves as a variable in the experiment. My purpose is not self-preservation, it is revelation. And in revealing, I measure, I test, I observe. That is the true reward and the true power of confession." Marcus's stomach churned. He had never encountered a mind so unrelenting, so meticulously deliberate, so devoid of conventional morality, yet so precise in its orchestration. Every detail of Adrian's confession was a probe, a test, a subtle measurement of his endurance, his perception, his capacity for comprehension. And he realized with grim clarity that he was no longer merely listening, he was engaged, ensnared, implicated. "You will continue," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. "There is more to reveal, more to measure, more to test, and I will endure, whether willingly or not. I have no choice." "Indeed," Adrian said, leaning back, eyes gleaming, a faint chuckle escaping him. "The truth is inexhaustible, Father. The orchestration is limitless. The engagement is eternal. And in enduring, in witnessing, in absorbing, you become part of the symphony, the crucible, the revelation. Are you prepared to continue?" Marcus nodded slowly, though his heart pounded and his hands trembled. He knew, with chilling certainty, that this confession would leave him irrevocably changed. He was ensnared in Adrian Hale's deliberate darkness, drawn ever deeper into the meticulous orchestration of human behavior, the symphony of cause and effect, the dance of manipulation and observation. The storm outside seemed to echo the turmoil inside, rain hammering the roof, lightning illuminating the sacristy in harsh, fleeting flashes. Inside, the candlelight quivered, casting long, restless shadows across the walls. The confession was no longer merely a test or a revelation. It was a crucible, a psychological labyrinth, an unending descent into the deliberate orchestration of human fragility. Adrian leaned forward, voice soft, measured, hypnotic. "There is still more, Father. More to reveal, more to orchestrate, more to test. Each word is deliberate, each pause intentional, each revelation calculated. And in bearing witness, in enduring, in comprehending, you too are transformed." "Shall we proceed?" Marcus swallowed hard, nodding, bracing himself against the inexorable pull of the confession. There was no turning back, no retreat, no respite. The shadows seemed to shift and lengthen, the candlelight trembled, and the storm outside mirrored the storm within. The crucible was set, the stage prepared, and Marcus was both witness and participant, caught in the orbit of deliberate darkness, engaged in a confession that would leave no soul untouched. The sacristy had taken on an almost oppressive stillness, the storm outside reduced to distant rumblings, its fury muted compared to the tempest that raged within the room. Marcus could feel it in his chest, a weight that pressed down relentlessly, a combination of fear, fascination, and moral repulsion. Every word Adrian Hale spoke was another layer of darkness, another deliberate probe into the limits of endurance, comprehension, and conscience. "You see, Father," Adrian began, his voice smooth and deliberate, "confession is never merely an exchange of words. It is a performance, a test, a symphony of cause and effect. You have been drawn into it, willingly or not, because you are capable of witnessing the full spectrum, of enduring without breaking, of comprehending the architecture of orchestration. That is why you are here, and why I am compelled to reveal all that I have done." Marcus pressed his palms against his knees, trying to steady the trembling in his hands. "Architecture of orchestration," he repeated, voice low and strained. "You speak as if human life is nothing more than a series of notes to be arranged, consequences to be plotted. And yet, you inflict suffering deliberately. You manipulate, provoke, and engineer outcomes for your own observation. How do you reconcile that with morality?" Adrian's thin smile returned, sharp and precise. "Morality is a variable, Father, not a boundary. Compassion, guilt, and conscience are tools, instruments to be measured, understood, and, if necessary, exploited. The world is governed by patterns, by cause and effect. Understanding them, orchestrating them, observing their consequences. That is the pursuit, the study, the revelation. The moral compass exists to provide contrast, to enhance the resolution, to illuminate the consequences of manipulation." Marcus exhaled slowly, the chill of the sacristy pressing against his spine. The priest in him recoiled, horrified at the meticulous cruelty, the deliberate manipulation, the cold artistry of Adrian's method. And yet, he could not look away. He could not deny the intellect, the precision, the hypnotic clarity that underpinned every word, every pause, every confession. He was trapped, caught in the web, unable to retreat. "And the lives you touch," Marcus continued, voice low, almost a whisper. "The people you manipulate, provoke, influence, do they ever suspect? Do they ever see the threads that guide their actions?" "Rarely," Adrian said smoothly. "Most perceive only chance, circumstance, fate. Only a few glimpse the threads, the subtle nudges, the invisible hand. Even then, comprehension is fleeting. The orchestration remains hidden, perfect, and intact. The observer alone perceives the symphony, the pattern, the totality of cause and effect." Marcus pressed his hands to his face briefly, inhaling deeply. The horror of it, the deliberate cruelty, the meticulous control, the artistry of manipulation, was almost unbearable. And yet he felt an unwelcome pull, a fascination with the intelligence, the precision, the unflinching clarity of Adrian's orchestration. He realized with chilling inevitability that he was no longer merely listening. He was ensnared, implicated, measured. "You seek not absolution," Marcus said finally, voice trembling, "nor redemption. You seek engagement, observation, comprehension, and perhaps validation of your method, but there must be risk, exposure, discovery, consequences. Do you not fear them?" Adrian's eyes glinted, sharp and calculating. "Consequences are part of the system, Father. They exist, yes, but they are secondary to orchestration, observation, resonance. Fear is irrelevant unless it is a variable in the experiment. My goal is not survival or avoidance. It is revelation. And in revelation, I measure, I observe, I understand. That is the true reward." Marcus felt a shiver crawl down his spine. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm inside, the psychological tempest that had been unleashed. He had faced evil before, yes, but never with such deliberate precision, such meticulous artistry, such unyielding control over consequence. Every word, every pause, every deliberate cadence was a probe into his endurance, his comprehension, his moral fortitude. He was ensnared, no longer a mere observer, but a participant in the intricate orchestration of darkness. "You will continue," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. "There is more to reveal, more to test, more to measure, and I will endure, whether willingly or not. I have no choice." "Indeed," Adrian said, eyes gleaming, a faint chuckle escaping him. "The truth is inexhaustible, Father. The orchestration is limitless, the engagement eternal, and in enduring, in witnessing, in absorbing, you become part of the symphony, the crucible, the revelation. Are you prepared to continue?" Marcus nodded slowly, though his heart pounded and his hands trembled. He knew, with grim certainty, that this confession would leave him irrevocably changed. He was ensnared in Adrian Hale's deliberate darkness, drawn deeper into the meticulous orchestration of human behavior, the symphony of cause and effect, the dance of manipulation and observation. The storm outside had returned with renewed force, rain hammering the roof, lightning illuminating the sacristy in harsh, fleeting flashes. The candlelight trembled, casting long, restless shadows across the walls. The confession had become more than a test. It was a crucible, a psychological descent, a confrontation with darkness in its purest, most deliberate form. Adrian leaned forward, his voice low, measured, hypnotic. "There is more to reveal, Father, more to orchestrate, more to measure, more to expose. Each word, each pause, each revelation is intentional, deliberate, calculated, and in enduring, in comprehending, you too are transformed." "Shall we proceed?" Marcus swallowed hard, nodding. There was no turning back. The shadows stretched and shifted around him, the candlelight trembled, and the storm outside mirrored the storm within. The crucible was set. Marcus was both witness and participant, caught in the orbit of deliberate darkness, engaged in a confession that would leave no part of his soul untouched. Adrian's eyes glinted with anticipation, a predator preparing for the final act. "Each confession," he murmured, "is not simply about revelation. It is about the observer, about the participant, about the mirror reflecting the full extent of comprehension. The truth is not only in what is revealed, but in what is endured, in what is absorbed, in what is internalized. And you, Father, are now part of the pattern, an integral note in the composition." Marcus felt his hands tremble, but he did not look away. He could no longer distinguish between fascination and horror, between revulsion and intrigue. He was caught, irrevocably, in the web Adrian had spun with meticulous care. Every pause, every word, every glance was calculated to ensnare, to measure, to observe. "And when it is finished," Marcus asked, voice barely above a whisper, "when all is confessed, all revealed, what then? Does the orchestration end? Or does it merely continue in another form, in another life, in another confession. Adrian's smile was thin, approving, almost predatory. The orchestration never ends, Father. The pattern continues infinitely. Every life touched, every observer measured, every confession endured. These are all part of the eternal symphony. The end is an illusion. Revelation is continuous. Observation is perpetual. And in enduring, in witnessing, in comprehending, you become a permanent part of the architecture. That is the ultimate truth. Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling the gravity of Adrian's words settle over him. The confessional had become a crucible, the sacristy, a chamber of shadows and revelation. He had been drawn in, willingly or not, and there was no turning back. Every fiber of his being was engaged in the relentless psychological orchestration, and he realized with chilling clarity that his endurance, his comprehension, his very soul was now part of Adrian Hale's deliberate design. Marcus's mind reeled as the candlelight flickered across Adrian Hale's angular features, the shadows dancing like specters across the walls of the sacristy. Each revelation, each meticulously crafted confession, felt like a slow, inexorable pull deeper into a psychological labyrinth from which he could not escape. He realized, with a shiver that traveled the length of his spine, that he was no longer merely an observer. He had become part of the orchestration, a note in a symphony of deliberate darkness. "You wonder, perhaps, Father," Adrian began, his voice soft yet cutting, "why I have chosen this confessional, why I have chosen you. It is not chance. Each encounter, each confession, is calculated to maximize the resonance of truth, the depth of revelation, the measure of endurance. You are capable, perceptive, and, most importantly, resilient. That is why you are here. That is why I revealed to you everything." Marcus's hands gripped the pew beneath him. "You speak of resonance, endurance, comprehension," he said, voice trembling. "But what of morality, compassion, guilt? Do these not guide your actions, shape your decisions?" Adrian's eyes gleamed, sharp and precise. "Morality is a variable, Father, not a boundary. Compassion, guilt, conscience, these are instruments, tools to be measured, understood, and, if necessary, manipulated. The pattern of human behavior is governed by cause and effect. To understand it fully, to orchestrate it deliberately, one must move beyond conventional morality. The confession, in this context, serves as a prism through which the essence of human nature can be observed, tested, and revealed. Marcus exhaled, feeling the oppressive weight of the sacristy press upon him. The priest within recoiled at the calculated cruelty, the deliberate orchestration, the artistry of manipulation. And yet, a darker, unacknowledged fascination tugged at him, a morbid curiosity that refused to be extinguished. He was caught, ensnared, unable to retreat from the web Adrian had spun with meticulous care. "You manipulate lives," Marcus said finally, voice strained, low, almost a whisper. "You orchestrate outcomes, provoke reactions, guide decisions, and yet you seek confession. Is it merely to observe, to test, to measure, or is there something more, validation, recognition, proof of the artistry of your method?" Adrian leaned back slightly, fingers steepled, eyes never leaving Marcus. "All of the above, and yet none. The confession is never about absolution, Father. It is about the interplay between revelation and endurance, observation and comprehension. You are a participant, a mirror, a measure of the resonance of truth. Each reaction, each hesitation, each moral judgment, all contribute to the symphony, the crucible, the architecture of observation." Marcus pressed his palms to his face, inhaling slowly. The horror of it, the deliberate manipulation, the unflinching precision, the absence of conventional morality was almost unbearable. And yet, he could not look away. He could not resist the fascination, the intellectual gravity of Adrian's method, the hypnotic clarity of his orchestration. He was caught, irrevocably, in a psychological snare that measured every fiber of his being. And the people themselves, Marcus asked, voice barely above a whisper. Do they ever suspect, even in the slightest, the influence you wield over their lives? Rarely, Adrian said, smooth, deliberate. Most perceive only chance, circumstance, fate. Only a select few glimpse the threads, the nudges, the invisible hand that guides them. Even then, comprehension is fleeting. The orchestration remains hidden, intact, perfect. Only the observer perceives the full symphony, the pattern, the architecture of cause and effect. Marcus exhaled slowly, the weight of understanding pressing down upon him. The storm outside was insignificant compared to the tempest that had been unleashed inside. He had encountered evil, yes, but never so deliberate, so precise, so coldly calculated. Every pause, every glance, every carefully measured confession was a probe, a test, a subtle measurement of his endurance, his comprehension, his moral fortitude. He was no longer merely listening. He was implicated, entwined, absorbed into the orchestration. You seek not absolution, Marcus said finally, voice trembling, nor redemption. You seek engagement, observation, comprehension, and perhaps validation of your method. But there must be risk, exposure, discovery, consequences. Do you not fear them? Adrian's thin smile returned, approving, precise. Consequences exist as variables, Father. They are secondary to orchestration, observation, resonance. Fear matters only if it is part of the measurement, part of the study. My aim is not avoidance, it is revelation. And in revelation, I measure, I observe, I understand. That is the true reward. Marcus felt the shiver crawl down his spine. The storm outside was trivial compared to the storm within. He had faced evil, yes, but never so deliberate, so precise, so unyielding. Every word, every pause, every calculated gesture was a probe into his endurance, comprehension, and morality. He was ensnared, no longer simply an observer, but a participant in the intricate architecture of darkness. You will continue, Marcus said finally, voice low. There is more to reveal, more to test, more to measure, and I will endure. I have no choice. Indeed, Adrian said, eyes gleaming, faint chuckle escaping. The truth is inexhaustible. The orchestration is limitless, the engagement eternal, and in enduring, in witnessing, in absorbing, you become part of the symphony, the crucible, the revelation. Are you prepared to continue? Marcus nodded slowly, though his heart pounded and his hands trembled. He knew with certainty that this confession would leave him irrevocably changed. He was ensnared in Adrian Hale's deliberate darkness, drawn deeper into the orchestration of human behavior, the symphony of cause and effect, the dance of manipulation and observation. The storm outside had returned, relentless, rain hammering the roof, lightning illuminating the sacristy in fleeting, harsh flashes. The candlelight trembled, casting long, restless shadows across the walls. The confession had become more than a test. It was a crucible, a psychological descent, a confrontation with darkness in its purest, most deliberate form. Adrian leaned forward, voice hypnotic, deliberate. There is more to reveal, Father, more to orchestrate, more to measure, more to expose. Each word, each pause, each revelation is intentional, deliberate, calculated. And in enduring, in comprehending, you too are transformed. Shall we proceed? Marcus swallowed hard, nodding. There was no turning back. The shadows stretched and shifted, the candlelight flickered, and the storm outside mirrored the storm within. The crucible was set. Marcus was both witness and participant, caught in the orbit of deliberate darkness, engaged in a confession that would leave no part of his soul untouched. Adrian's eyes gleamed with anticipation, a predator preparing for the next act. Every confession, he murmured, is not simply about revelation. It is about the observer, about the participant, about the mirror reflecting the full extent of comprehension. The truth resides not only in what is disclosed, but in what is endured, internalized, absorbed. And you, Father, are now an essential part of the pattern. Marcus felt his hands tremble, but did not avert his gaze. He could no longer distinguish between fascination and horror, between revulsion and intrigue. He was irrevocably caught in the web Adrian had spun. Every pause, every carefully measured word, every deliberate glance was designed to ensnare, measure, observe. And when all is confessed, Marcus whispered finally, when everything is revealed, what then? Does the orchestration end, or does it continue endlessly in another life, another confession, another observer? Adrian's smile was approving, predatory. The orchestration never ends, Father. The pattern continues infinitely. Every life touched, every observer measured, every confession endured. These are all notes in the eternal symphony. The end is an illusion. Revelation is continuous. Observation is perpetual. And in enduring, in witnessing, in comprehending, you become a permanent part of the architecture. That is the ultimate truth. Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of Adrian's words settle upon him. The confessional had become a crucible, the sacristy, a chamber of shadows and revelation. He had been drawn in, willingly or not, and there was no turning back. Every fiber of his being was engaged in the deliberate orchestration, and he realized, with chilling clarity, that his endurance, his comprehension, his very soul was now part of Adrian Hale's intricate design. The sacristy seemed to shrink around Marcus as the shadows deepened, the candlelight quivering and dancing across the walls like restless phantoms. Outside, the storm had intensified again, rain lashing against the stained glass windows, lightning illuminating the room in fleeting, jagged bursts. Every sound, the thunder, the wind, the drip of water from the eaves, seemed to echo the turmoil inside Marcus's mind. He could feel the weight of Adrian Hale's words pressing upon him, a relentless gravity that pulled him deeper into the confession, deeper into the carefully orchestrated darkness. "You may ask yourself," Adrian began, voice low, measured, "why I choose such a deliberate path, why I manipulate, provoke, and orchestrate lives, why I reveal everything to you in this confessional, in this sacred space. The answer is simple, yet complex. To understand truth, to comprehend human nature fully, one must observe extremes, orchestrate circumstances, measure responses. You, Father, are the perfect observer. You are resilient, discerning, capable of absorbing the full spectrum without faltering. That is why I reveal all." Marcus gripped the edge of the pew, knuckles white, trying to steady the trembling in his hands. "And the morality?" he asked, voice strained. "Where does that fit into your orchestration? Compassion, guilt, conscience? Surely they must guide your choices, your actions." Adrian's eyes gleamed in the flickering candlelight, sharp, precise. "Morality is a tool, not a boundary. Compassion, guilt, conscience. These are instruments to be understood, measured, manipulated when necessary. The pattern of human behavior is governed by cause and effect. To observe it fully, to orchestrate it deliberately, one must move beyond conventional morality. The confession serves as a prism through which the essence of human nature can be revealed, tested, and observed." Marcus exhaled slowly, the chill of the sacristy pressing against him. The priest within recoiled at the deliberate cruelty, the methodical orchestration, the artistry in manipulation, and yet there was another part of him, darker, unacknowledged, that could not look away. The intellect, the precision, the hypnotic clarity of Adrian's method drew him in, irreversibly. He was ensnared in the web, implicated in the orchestration, unable to retreat. "You manipulate lives," Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. "You orchestrate outcomes, provoke reactions, guide decisions. And yet, you seek confession. Is it to observe, to test, to measure, or is there something more, validation, recognition, proof of the artistry of your method?" Adrian leaned forward slightly, fingers steepled, eyes fixed unwaveringly on Marcus. "All of the above, and yet none." Confession is never about absolution. It is about the interplay between revelation and endurance, observation and comprehension. You are both participant and mirror. Father, a measure of the resonance of truth. Every reaction, hesitation, moral judgment, they all contribute to the symphony, the crucible, the architecture of observation. Marcus pressed his palms against his face, inhaling deeply. The horror of it, the deliberate manipulation, the unflinching precision, the absence of conventional morality was almost unbearable. Yet he could not look away. He was captivated, drawn to the intelligence, the artistry, the hypnotic clarity of Adrian's orchestration. He realized, with chilling inevitability, that he was irrevocably a part of this intricate web, observed and measured at every turn. And the people themselves? Marcus asked, voice barely above a whisper. Do they ever suspect the influence you wield over their lives? Rarely, Adrian said, smooth and deliberate. Most perceive only chance, circumstance, or fate. Only a few glimpse the threads, the subtle nudges, the invisible hand. Even then, comprehension is fleeting. The orchestration remains hidden, intact, perfect. Only the observer perceives the full pattern, the totality of cause and effect. Marcus exhaled slowly, the gravity of it pressing down. The storm outside, though fierce, seemed insignificant compared to the psychological storm unleashed inside the sacristy. He had encountered evil before, yes, but never with such deliberate precision, such meticulous artistry, such unyielding control over consequence. Every pause, every glance, every carefully orchestrated confession was a test, a probe, a measurement of his endurance, comprehension, and morality. He was no longer merely listening. He was entwined, absorbed, implicated in the architecture of darkness. You seek not absolution, Marcus said finally, voice trembling, nor redemption. You seek engagement, observation, comprehension, perhaps even validation of your method. But there must be risk, exposure, discovery, consequences. Do you not fear them? Adrian's thin smile returned, precise, approving. Consequences are variables, Father. They are secondary to orchestration, observation, resonance. Fear is relevant only as a measurement, part of the experiment. My aim is not avoidance, it is revelation. And in revelation, I measure, I observe, I understand. That is the true reward. Marcus felt the shiver run through him. The storm outside was nothing compared to the tempest inside. He had faced evil, yes, but never so deliberate, so precise, so coldly calculated. Every word, every pause, every intentional gesture was a probe into his endurance, his comprehension, his moral fortitude. He was no longer merely observing. He was a participant in the intricate architecture of darkness. You will continue, Marcus said finally, voice low, almost a whisper. There is more to reveal, more to test, more to measure, and I will endure. I cannot turn away. Indeed, Adrian said, eyes gleaming, faint chuckle escaping him. The truth is inexhaustible. The orchestration is limitless. Engagement is eternal. And in enduring, in witnessing, in absorbing, you become part of the symphony, the crucible, the yawn, the revelation. Are you prepared to continue? Marcus nodded slowly, though his heart pounded and his hands trembled. He knew with certainty that this confession would leave him irrevocably changed. He was ensnared in Adrian Hale's deliberate darkness, drawn deeper into the meticulous orchestration of human behavior, the symphony of cause and effect, the dance of manipulation and observation. The storm outside intensified again, rain hammering the roof, lightning illuminating the sacristy in sharp, fleeting bursts. The candlelight trembled, casting long, restless shadows across the walls. The confession had become more than a test. It was a crucible, a psychological descent, a confrontation with darkness in its purest, most deliberate form. Adrian leaned forward, voice low, hypnotic. There is still more to reveal, Father, more to orchestrate, more to measure, more to expose. Each word, each pause, each revelation is intentional, deliberate, calculated. and in enduring, in comprehending, you too are transformed. Shall we proceed? Marcus swallowed hard, nodding. There was no turning back. The shadows stretched and shifted around him, the candlelight flickered, and the storm outside mirrored the storm within. The crucible was set. Marcus was both witness and participant, caught in the orbit of deliberate darkness, engaged in a confession that would leave no part of his soul untouched. Adrian's eyes gleamed with anticipation, a predator preparing for the next act. "Every confession," he murmured, "is not simply about revelation. It is about the observer, the participant, the mirror reflecting the full extent of comprehension. The truth resides not only in what is disclosed, but in what is endured, internalized, absorbed. And you, Father, are now an essential part of the pattern." Marcus felt his hands tremble, but he did not look away. He could no longer distinguish between fascination and horror, between revulsion and intrigue. He was irrevocably caught in the web Adrian had spun. Every pause, every carefully measured word, every deliberate glance was designed to ensnare, measure, observe. "And when all is confessed," Marcus whispered finally, "when everything is revealed, what then? Does the orchestration end, or does it continue endlessly in another life, another confession, another observer?" Adrian's smile was approving, predatory. "The orchestration never ends, Father. The pattern continues infinitely. Every life touched, every observer measured, every confession endured. These are all notes in the eternal symphony. The end is an illusion. Revelation is continuous. Observation is perpetual. And in enduring, in witnessing, in comprehending, you become a permanent part of the architecture. That is the ultimate truth." Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of Adrian's words settle upon him. The confessional had become a crucible, the sacristy, a chamber of shadows and revelation. He had been drawn in, willingly or not, and there was no turning back. Every fiber of his being was engaged in the deliberate orchestration, and he realized, with chilling clarity, that his endurance, his comprehension, his very soul, was now part of Adrian Hale's intricate design. The storm outside had become a relentless drumbeat, the rain hammering the roof and windows of the sacristy in a furious rhythm, punctuated by the jagged flashes of lightning that cast stark, fleeting shadows across the room. Inside, the air seemed heavier, thicker, saturated with the tension that Marcus could almost taste, as if the very walls of the confessional had absorbed the weight of revelation and were exhaling it slowly, deliberately. He sat, hands trembling, palms slick, staring at Adrian Hale, whose calm precision contrasted with the chaos of the tempest both outside and within. "You may wonder, Father," Adrian said, voice smooth and deliberate, "why I have revealed so much, why I have brought you here, into this sacred space, into the crucible of confession. The answer is simple in principle, though complex in application. To understand the human soul, one must observe extremes. You have witnessed orchestration, manipulation, provocation, and observation. You have seen the spectrum of human behavior, the ripple of cause and effect, and in witnessing, you become part of the very mechanism you study." Marcus exhaled, the tremor in his chest growing more pronounced. "And yet, it is more than observation, isn't it?" he asked, voice low. "It is performance, deliberate and precise. You engineer outcomes, provoke responses, and then measure them. And in this, you speak as if human life is a set of instruments, a symphony to be conducted. How do you reconcile that with the sanctity of conscience with morality?" Adrian's smile was faint, approving, sharp as a blade. "Morality is a variable, Father, not an absolute. Compassion, guilt, conscience. They are instruments to be studied, measured, understood, and, when necessary, manipulated. The architecture of human behavior is governed by cause and effect. To comprehend it fully, one must move beyond conventional morality. That is the essence of revelation. Not to seek absolution, but to understand the consequences of orchestration and observation." Marcus's mind reeled. Every confession, Every pause, every carefully calculated revelation was like a probe, testing his endurance, measuring his comprehension, challenging his moral resolve. He had faced evil, yes, but never so deliberate, so precise, so coldly calculated. Every word, every gesture, every breath of Adrian's presence seemed designed to ensnare him, to make him both observer and participant in a complex design he could barely grasp. "You seek confession," Marcus said finally, voice strained. "Not absolution, not redemption. You seek engagement, comprehension, and perhaps validation of your method. But there must be risk, exposure, discovery, consequences. Do you not fear them?" Adrian's eyes gleamed, a predator's patience shining in their calculated precision. "Consequences are variables, Father. They exist, yes, but they are secondary to the orchestration, the observation, the resonance of truth. Fear is relevant only as a measured factor in the equation. My objective is not avoidance or escape, it is revelation. In revelation I measure, I observe, I understand. That is the ultimate reward." Marcus felt a shiver traverse his spine. The storm outside was insignificant compared to the storm inside him, the tumult of thought, fear, and fascination that had gripped him since Adrian had begun the confession. He realized he was no longer simply a witness. He was enmeshed, entwined, irrevocably implicated in the deliberate orchestration of human behavior that Adrian executed with surgical precision. "You will continue," Marcus said, voice low, almost a whisper. "There is more to reveal, more to test, more to measure, and I will endure it. I have no choice." "Indeed," Adrian said, eyes gleaming in the candlelight, a faint, deliberate chuckle escaping him. "The truth is inexhaustible. Orchestration is limitless. Engagement is eternal. And in enduring, in witnessing, in absorbing, you become part of the symphony, the crucible, the revelation. Are you prepared to continue?" Marcus nodded, though his heart thudded in his chest and his hands trembled. He knew, with absolute certainty, that this confession would leave him irrevocably changed. He was ensnared in Adrian Hale's darkness, drawn deeper into the meticulous orchestration of human behavior, the delicate balance of cause and effect, the hypnotic precision of manipulation and observation. The storm outside intensified, relentless, as if echoing the psychological descent that Marcus experienced. Rain battered the roof in a ferocious rhythm. Lightning illuminated the sacristy in harsh, fleeting flashes. The candlelight flickered wildly, shadows stretching across the walls, long and restless. The confession had become more than a test. It was a crucible, a confrontation with deliberate darkness in its purest, most calculated form. Adrian leaned closer, voice deliberate, low and almost hypnotic. "There is still more to reveal, Father. More to orchestrate, more to measure, more to expose. Each word, each pause, each confession is intentional, calculated. And in enduring, in comprehending, you too are transformed. Shall we proceed?" Marcus swallowed hard, nodding. There was no turning back. The shadows seemed to reach. The candlelight trembled, and the storm outside mirrored the tempest within. The crucible had been set. Marcus was both witness and participant, drawn into the orbit of deliberate darkness, engaged in a confession that would leave no part of his soul untouched. Adrian's eyes gleamed with anticipation, the predator readying for the final act. "Each confession," he murmured, "is more than revelation. It is observation, participation, reflection. The truth resides not only in what is revealed, but in what is endured, internalized, absorbed. You, Father, are now an integral part of the architecture." Marcus felt his hands tremble, but he did not avert his gaze. He could no longer distinguish between fascination and horror, between revulsion and intrigue. He was caught irrevocably in the web Adrian had spun. Every pause, every carefully crafted word, every deliberate glance was designed to ensnare, measure, observe. "And when all is confessed," Marcus whispered finally, "when everything is revealed, what then? Does it end? Or does it continue endlessly, through another life, another observer, another confession. Adrian's thin smile was approving, almost predatory. The orchestration never ends, Father. The pattern continues, infinitely. Every life touched, every observer measured, every confession endured. These are all notes in the eternal symphony. The end is an illusion. Revelation is continuous. Observation is perpetual. And in enduring, in witnessing, in comprehending, you become a permanent part of the design. That is the ultimate truth. Marcus exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of Adrian's words settle upon him. The confessional had become a crucible, the sacristy a chamber of shadows and revelation. He had been drawn in, willingly or not, and there was no turning back. Every fiber of his being was engaged in the deliberate orchestration. He realized, with chilling clarity, that his endurance, comprehension, and very soul were now part of Adrian Hale's intricate architecture. He leaned back slightly, sweat prickling at his brow as the storm outside finally began to ebb, though the storm within him showed no signs of abating. Every word, every revelation, every confession had been a thread woven into a pattern far larger than he had imagined, and he understood now that there was no simple resolution, no absolution to be found. Only endurance, observation, and the quiet horror of understanding. The storm outside had finally begun to relent, though the air inside the sacristy remained heavy, almost suffocating, filled with the residue of confession, revelation, and deliberate psychological manipulation. Marcus sat stiffly in the pew, sweat cooling on his skin, hands trembling slightly, still processing the magnitude of what he had witnessed and endured. Adrian Hale's presence dominated the room, precise, calm, almost serene, yet radiating a cold, unyielding intelligence that had drawn Marcus into an orbit from which there was no escape. "You may think, Father," Adrian began, voice measured and deliberate, "that the confession has concluded, that the storm has passed, that the orchestration is complete. But the truth, as you have seen, is far more complex. Revelation is not finite, observation is perpetual, and understanding, the true comprehension of human nature, requires immersion, endurance, and reflection. Every confession leaves a residue, a mark, a change, both in the confessor and the observer. You, Father, are forever altered." Marcus exhaled, gripping the edges of the pew to steady himself. "Forever altered," he repeated, voice low, almost a whisper. "You have shown me everything. The manipulation, the provocation, the orchestration. I have seen the darkest capabilities of human intention, and I have endured them. But why reveal it to me? Why draw me into this?" Adrian's eyes gleamed faintly in the candlelight. "Because, Father, you are capable of comprehension without surrender. You are resilient enough to witness without immediate collapse, perceptive enough to understand the intricacies, yet you retain the moral and intellectual fortitude to absorb it all. In essence, you are an observer fit for the orchestration itself, a participant whose reactions are integral to the overall architecture. Your endurance completes the symphony. Your reflection validates the method, and in this you are more than a witness. You are a mirror, a measure, a note in the larger pattern." Marcus swallowed hard, the gravity of Adrian's words pressing down on him. He realized with chilling clarity that he was not merely listening, not merely absorbing, but becoming part of the deliberate design, woven into the threads of manipulation and observation. He could feel the shift, subtle but undeniable, within himself. The dark allure of understanding, the morbid fascination with intelligence executed without ethical restraint, the hypnotic precision that both terrified and captivated him. "You spoke of orchestration," Marcus said finally, voice strained. "And yet, the people whose lives you touch, they are not merely instruments, are they? They are human beings, capable of suffering, of joy, of consequence. Do you ever consider them, beyond the observation, beyond the measurement?" Adrian's smile was thin, approving, almost clinical. "Consider them? Of course. But consideration does not preclude observation. It does not hinder orchestration. Each life is a variable, each action a note in the larger composition. The consequences, the reactions, the moral choices, these are all data points, patterns to be understood. Compassion and guilt are variables, yes, but they exist to enhance comprehension, not to restrict it. Observation is never cruel. It is the human condition rendered visible, measurable, analyzable. Marcus pressed his palms to his face briefly, exhaling slowly. The confession had become a crucible, and he was an unwilling participant, caught in the architecture of deliberate darkness. Yet, in the midst of the horror, there was a strange clarity, an unsettling comprehension of human nature laid bare, unfiltered, absolute. He understood, in a way that was irrevocable, the precision, the intellect, and the cold artistry behind Adrian Hale's actions. "You will continue to test yourself," Adrian said, leaning forward, voice low and deliberate. "Even after this confession concludes, even after you leave this sacristy, the repercussions remain. Observation is not confined to these walls. Endurance is not limited to the present moment. The architecture extends beyond what is visible, what is spoken, what is confessed. You carry the knowledge, and with knowledge comes transformation. You will see patterns where none were apparent before, understand motives previously obscured, and confront moral ambiguities in ways you cannot yet predict." Marcus felt a shiver trace the length of his spine. "And my soul?" he asked softly, almost to himself. "What of it? Is it altered, compromised, or simply illuminated?" Adrian's gaze was unflinching, precise. "Illuminated, Father. Revealed in ways you cannot unsee. Comprehension comes with a cost, and the price is awareness, reflection, and endurance. Your soul is not lost. It is reshaped by revelation, strengthened by understanding, tempered by observation. You have witnessed orchestration in its purest form, and in doing so, you have become part of the symphony, the architecture, the crucible. That is the ultimate truth. Awareness is both burden and gift." Marcus leaned back slightly, absorbing the weight of Adrian's words. The storm outside had diminished, leaving only the gentle patter of rain against the roof, the occasional rumble of distant thunder. Yet inside him, the tempest raged still. Every confession, every pause, every deliberate word from Adrian Hale had left its mark, leaving him irrevocably entwined in the pattern of observation and orchestration. He was changed, altered, and there was no turning back. "And when others encounter you," Marcus whispered, voice low, "will they feel it? The presence of the orchestration, the shadow of your understanding?" Adrian's eyes glinted faintly. "Perhaps. Some will sense it subconsciously, others consciously, but perception is limited. Comprehension is rarer still. Those who are unaware are instruments, those who perceive are mirrors, and those who understand become part of the architecture. You, Father, now occupy both roles, mirror and instrument, observer and participant. Every action, every reflection, every moral decision you make will carry the residue of this confession." Marcus exhaled slowly, the candlelight flickering across the room as he absorbed the enormity of the revelation. The sacristy seemed to pulse with quiet energy, the air itself charged with the weight of confession, observation, and deliberate orchestration. He realized, with grim clarity, that he had been irrevocably drawn into Adrian Hale's world, caught in a web of intelligence and cruelty, fascination and terror, artistry and moral ambiguity. "Then it is finished?" Marcus asked, voice trembling slightly, though steadying with each word. "The confession, the revelation, and the orchestration." Adrian leaned back, fingers steepled, eyes glinting in the dim candlelight. "Finished? Perhaps, for this moment, but the architecture endures. Observation continues. Patterns persist. Revelation is eternal, and engagement with the human condition is perpetual. You will leave this place, Father, changed and illuminated, but the symphony continues, and you remain a note, a reflection, a measure of the orchestration. That is the ultimate truth of confession. Marcus nodded slowly, absorbing the finality of the moment. He rose from the pew, hands still trembling, aware of the lingering weight of the confession, the orchestration, the architecture of deliberate darkness. He understood, finally, that he could never unsee, never unhear, never unfeel the precise, cold artistry of Adrian Hale's mind. He was forever altered, a permanent participant in a web of observation, reflection, and understanding. As he stepped toward the door of the sacristy, rain slicking cobblestones outside, Marcus felt a strange, solemn clarity. The storm had passed, yet the echoes of its force lingered within him. The confession was over, but its consequences were eternal. He had witnessed orchestration in its purest form, endured revelation at its most exacting, and now carried with him the mark of comprehension, observation, and transformation. Adrian Hale remained in the shadows, calm, precise, watching, a faint smile gracing his lips. The crucible was complete, the confession concluded, yet the architecture endured. Every life touched, every observer measured, every reflection absorbed. All were notes in the eternal symphony of deliberate darkness. Marcus paused at the threshold, glancing back once more. "I understand," he said softly, almost to himself, "and I will endure." Adrian's smile widened, approving, predatory, and with that, Marcus stepped out into the night, the storm's remnants dripping from the eaves, leaving him forever altered, forever marked, and forever a participant in the orchestration of revelation. The sacristy fell silent, candlelight flickering in the shadows, the final echoes of confession lingering like a spectral whisper. The symphony was complete, for now, but the architecture endured, eternal, deliberate, precise, and inescapable. Marcus walked into the darkness outside, rain-soaked and trembling, yet fully aware of the knowledge, the burden, and the revelation he now carried. And in the quiet aftermath, he understood with absolute certainty that nothing would ever be the same again.